The Radiance of Pokémon wisdom. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 126, Crazy Collector. Asia Island, the place where the sea god Lugia appeared in legend. Every year, a sacrifice is held at a fixed time and a grand celebration is held. Zahu and Kona arrived just the night before the celebration. That's how Zahu felt, that he was going to die. Is there something important going to happen? Since you came here, you have been very nervous. Kona looked at Zahu with concern. Because I know someone wants to die, but I don't know if I can stop that person, Zahu said. Kona frowned and was about to ask when he suddenly heard several rapid screams in the sky. Zahu's face changed. It was the Moltres he sent out to investigate the situation. Pockets, come out. Zahu threw it fiercely. In order to deal with the crazy collector Jaluta, he specially brought several powerful partners from the research institute, especially Flying Pockets. Not long after Pockets flew out, the Articuno in the sky also reacted quickly and stopped above Zahu and the others. Sister Kona, I'll ride Articuno, you ride Togekiss, and then fly up to find Moltres. If I'm not mistaken, the legendary doomsday has begun, Zahu said with a serious expression. Kona's expression was strange, and she didn't know what was going on, but at this moment, large snowflakes suddenly fell from the sky, and then a strange aurora enveloped the sky at the top. Seeing such a fantastic scene, Zahu didn't need to say anything more. As long as they were not fools, they would realize that something was wrong, and ride Togekiss directly. Zahu also turned over and rode Articuno, and then flew quickly to the place where Moltres made the sound. Not long after, a behemoth built purely by modern technology appeared in front of him. The Sky Fortress, which was the size of an ordinary luxury manor, was equipped with various modern technology weapons, and it reflected the most advanced technology everywhere. Zahu's Moltres had disappeared. Most likely it had been captured. Articuno, use the destruction ray. Togekiss, use the wave missile. Destroy this thing for me, Zahu shouted. Upon hearing this, Articuno and Pockets immediately used their most powerful attacks. The two powerful attacks hit the Sky Fortress with great force, causing it to tremble several times and many cracks to appear. When the collector Jaluta in the fortress saw this scene, he frowned at first, especially after discovering the existence of Kona. However, when he saw the Articuno under Zahu, his face suddenly brightened. Although his target was not this Articuno, he would not mind catching one more as a collection. He slammed a button in front of him, and a passage under the Sky Fortress opened. Several ring-shaped objects flashing with electric light flew out. There was a strange electromagnetic force between the two sisters, attacking Zahu and Kona. Articuno uses Blizzard attack. Pockets, you listen to Kona's command, Zahu said. Articuno sprayed large pieces of ice and snow from its mouth, and a layer of frost froze on its body. The heavy snow at this moment was the best time to exert its strength. Ice and snow burst out all around, freezing the electromagnetic tool thrown by Jaluta directly, and causing it to fall. Jaluta in the fortress first showed a surprised expression, then said excitedly, okay, very good, this is the collection I want. Get ready for my attack baptism. He pressed 3 or 4 attack buttons next to him in succession, and then a large number of electromagnetic rings flew out all over the place. There were also strange sound wave attacks in the entire fortress. Zahu and Kona felt sick, and felt like their brains were about to explode. Both Pokémon showed painful expressions. Unchanging wave attack. Damn, what is the origin of this guy? Kona frowned. Originally, with her and Togekiss' strength, they could easily dodge these attacks, but now they are in danger of death and almost didn't dodge them several times. Zahu also frowned. He had also heard of this unchanging wave, or the degenerate wave. This is the technology that the Alliance has just developed. It was originally intended to replace the Stone of Unchange and prevent Pokémon from evolving forever, but for some reason, it turned into a sound wave that makes Pokémon degenerate. However, Pokémon evolution is a special law of this world, and forced degeneration is not advisable. Dozens of Pokémon test subjects all entered an endangered state, so the Alliance finally abandoned the research. But that's it. Unless it is a Pokémon in its primary form, Pokémon will be very uncomfortable when encountering this thing. Damn it, this thing should be left as is his Bulbasaur and Squirtle. Zahu cursed in his heart, but it was useless. Most of the Pokémon he and Kona had were from land or sea. Fighting in the sky was not good for them, and many Pokémon could not be released. However, the situation became more and more critical, so Zahu had to take a gamble and threw Gyarados' Pokéball to the Sky Fortress. There was the sea below, and even if it fell halfway, Gyarados would not be seriously injured. Gyarados appeared on the Sky Fortress with great force, and then twisted its huge body and began to destroy the Sky Fortress. Jaluta had an expression of disbelief on his face. The fortress he had built, by emptying his entire family's resources, could not withstand a Gyarados. However, looking at the huge Gyarados, he soon became ecstatic. Very good, another perfect collection. Use the entire attack force to the maximum limit, Jaluta said to the artificial intelligence with a hint of madness on his face. At that moment, the entire Sky Fortress trembled violently, and the sonic attacks around it condensed to the most terrifying state. Zahu and Kona felt as if something was hitting their brains, and a strong desire for sleepiness came over them. With his last breath, Zahu threw several Pokéballs on his waist into the water, and then shouted, "Gyarados, use the Destruction Death Ray, and destroy the fortress for me." After that, Zahu, Kona and the other two Pokémon could not withstand the terrifying sonic attack, and fell straight down. At this moment, Gyarados was also surrounded by dozens of rings. These rings were electromagnetically connected to each other, trapping Gyarados. Gyarados could not escape for a while, and only then did he realize that the electromagnetic cage formed by the rings was much stronger than he had imagined. Just hearing Zahu's order, he ignored everything and exerted his strongest strength, using a powerful destructive death ray, creating a huge gap in Jaluta's Sky Fortress. Black smoke was billowing, and the Sky Fortress was shaky and fell directly. Jalute frowned, not expecting Zahu to be so difficult to deal with. However, when he saw Zahu and Kona falling, Gyarados was exhausted after using one move, and then he showed a happy expression, activated the emergency landing device, and flames were sprayed all around to slow down the falling speed. Then several rings flew out to cover Zahu, Kona and the two Pokémon, and took them to the Sky Fortress. At this moment, a dark blue light flashed in the sea, and a ball suddenly broke, revealing the figure of Mewtwo. Outside, there was wind and snow, as well as aurora and explosions. Mewtwo was awakened, even if he was sleeping deeply. He looked up at the sky with dissatisfaction, and found Zahu's figure in the sky. His expression changed, and then he stretched out 3 fingers, and the powerful superpower burst out, and all the electromagnetic rings in the sky exploded directly. After these electromagnetic rings formed a cage, it was extremely difficult to open from the inside, but not very difficult from the outside. Then Mewtwo's entire Pokémon turned into a blue light, and broke through the sea, like a Superman, with both hands open, and 2 streams of telekinesis dragged out, dragging Zahu and Kona up. Chapter 127 The Deserving Flame Bird. Mewtwo's telekinetic power wave worked, and Zahu quickly woke up from his coma. He looked at Mewtwo in surprise. Why was it here? Could it be that it listened to me last time and came to the Orange Islands to challenge Lugia to verify who is the strongest Pokémon? Why are you so weak? Mewtwo said. The other part is technology is powerful, Zahu said helplessly. In this world, where the mythical beasts have great power, humans still dominate. There is a reason. Technology is really ridiculous. For example, the Pokémon hunter Jay Sinnoh has the technology to petrify Pokémon. He even petrified the Holy Pillar King Richichilu. This collector dared to attack Lugia, and he also mastered good technology. That's because you are too weak, Mewtwo said mercilessly. With its abnormal superpowers, it directly used its superpowers to form a barrier between itself and the sound waves, isolating everything, so there was no effect at all. It must be said that, as long as the superpowers are strong enough, you can do whatever you want. Also, why are you fighting? Mewtwo said. That's because this collector has a broken brain, similar to Sakaki. Zahu roughly recounted the matter. After listening to it, Mewtwo showed disgust and dissatisfaction on his face and said, "It's indeed a dirty and ugly human. What kind of Pokémon are you?" Collector Jaluta opened the door and looked at Mewtwo with curiosity. He had never seen a Pokémon before, and his eyes couldn't help but reveal agreed. "Ugly guy." Mewtwo looked at Jaluta's eyes, and it felt like seeing the people who made it. The superpower burst out, and the whole blast went over, directly blowing up Jaluta's sky fortress. A burst of black smoke rose, and 2 Moltres flew out of the smoke, while Jaluta's life and death were unknown. Zahu glanced at Mewtwo and thought, why does it feel that its strength is much higher than before? Did it fight with Lugia after coming here, and then was beaten, so it worked hard to hone itself? What are you thinking about? Mewtwo's majestic eyes swept over. No, I'm not thinking about anything. Zahu shook his head like a rattle. Now that Mew is not around, he can't be too idle. Mewtwo still stared at Zahu and said, "You said that, if I were the strongest Pokémon, you would help me rule the world. I have already defeated the Lugia here, and it is no match for me. You should help me." Huh? Zahu was stunned. When did I say that I would help you if you could defeat it? Besides, can you really beat the Lugia here? Did you really beat it? Zahu said uncertainly. I'm not one of you humans. I never lie. Mewtwo seemed a little angry. Then wait a minute, let me verify and see if the one you beat was the one I remembered. Zahu said. How many of a kind of mythical beast there are, whether there is only one or a group, this has always been a mystery, but there are a few for sure, like Lugia, there are at least 3. There is one in the Orange Islands here, and 2 in the Johto Whirlpool Islands, 1 large and 1 small. If it is a level of the Whirlpool Islands, Mewtwo may indeed win. After all, in the animation, Team Rocket only sent Nanba, Amado, and Kozaburo to catch these 2, and did not even send out the main force. Speaking of which, Zahu still doesn't know how many Lugias the Orange group has here. Speaking of verification, Zahu looked at the Moltres on the side. He wanted to find the sea god, so he had to study these sacred birds. Looking over, Zahu saw a wild Moltres on the side, actually educating his Moltres, saying why it was subdued by the annoying human, and trying to persuade Moltres to leave him. Hearing this, Zahu immediately became angry, and drove Articuno to the side of Moltres and said, "This is my Pokémon, I subdued it with my strength, why do you let him leave me? And, I saved you, okay? You are repaying kindness with enmity." Although it was Mewtwo who saved the Moltres in the end, if it wasn't for him, Mewtwo wouldn't have come to help. In Mewtwo's eyes, this Moltres is just a passerby. Noble sacred beasts will not be subdued. You, a human, just want to take advantage of our powerful strength. Moltres said arrogantly. Powerful? Zahu's eyes widened. If it was the Lugia below who was talking, I would have accepted it, but how could you, a stupid bird that was caught in seconds, have the confidence to say such a thing? I want to take back this Moltres. You are not its trainer in the future. The Fire God's Moltres said proudly. Zahu's face darkened slightly, and he looked at Mewtwo on the side and said, "Can you help me stabilize my body temporarily and fly alone?" Mewtwo nodded, and used his telekinesis to let Zahu fly alone. Then Zahu said to Articuno and Moltres, "Beat this fire god and let it know how to be a bird." After hearing this, Articuno attacked immediately without thinking, and a water wave spurted out of its mouth. The wild Moltres did not expect Zahu to dare to attack first, and was caught off guard and hit directly, and its body was weak for a while. Molcedo, if you want to challenge the fire god in the future, you will have to fight sooner or later. Now practice your hand first, use S/. Zahu ordered the Moltres on the side. Moltres thought about it after hearing Zahu's order, nodded suddenly, and vibrated its wings. 2 powerful air slashes were launched at the wild Moltres. The wild Moltres, which had already been hit by a water wave, was hit by the air slash again, and its injuries were even more serious. Zahu saw this, and his eyes became more disdainful. Who told you to brag, if you don't have the strength? As if it felt Zahu's contempt, and seemed to be attacked by Zahu's Moltres. The wild Moltres, which had become the god of fire, was controlled by anger, and fell into a state of madness. A strong and domineering flame burst out of its mouth, and went straight to Articuno. Articuno was unable to react in time, and was hit directly. Its body was a little black. It was obviously seriously injured, but it had been following Zahu for so long, and it had learned persistence and perseverance. Gritting its teeth, it continued to fight. A layer of light ice and snow fell from the sky, and Articuno's strength increased significantly. Then it opened its mouth and a strong freezing light burst out. The wild Molter's wings vibrated, and a blazing flame erupted from its body. A powerful vortex of flame sprayed out, evaporating all the ice and snow around it, and it continued to attack. Articuno was unable to dodge, and was about to be hit again. Moltres on the other side quickly flew over, and flapped its wings, to directly eliminate the flame residue. Seeing that Moltres actually helped Articuno, the god of fire became even more angry, and strong flames erupted everywhere, burning all around. Zahu's Articuno and Moltres fell into a disadvantage for a while. Zahu frowned and wondered, what's going on? How did this Moltres suddenly become so powerful? It's called the god of fire, so of course it should have such strength. And it's the strongest among Moltres, and theoretically it's the leader of all Moltres, but now it's being attacked by your Moltres, so it's angry. According to current research, once a Pokémon is angry and out of control, its attack power will increase significantly. Kona explained. Is that so? Zahu frowned even more. In the movie, the scene of the 3 legendary birds being caught in seconds was so deeply rooted in people's minds that he forgot that after the anger got out of control, the 3 stupid birds burst out with powerful fighting power, which was completely unlike the stupid birds that were caught in seconds. In addition, anger can enhance the strength of Pokémon, not limited to legendary beasts, but all Pokémon. In the episode in Johto, when Nanbo and his men caught Lugia, Nanbo invented a device that would make Pokémon angry and then greatly increase the strength of Pokémon. Do you want me to help you beat it down? Mewtwo said. Although the power of this wild Moltres has increased, it is still a level away from him. One-on-one, easy and stress-free. No, I'll do it myself. The gap in strength between the two sides is not particularly obvious, so there is still a fight. Zahu said with a firm look. Mewtwo looked at it and stopped talking. Zahu was special to it, but that was all. Zahu's eyes were firm. Mewtwo was a little too strong, and he couldn't beat it, but if he couldn't even fight Moltres, he was really too weak. Chapter 128, Strange Feeling, Beating Moltres. Articuno, use White Mist. Don't fight it head on. Fight with agility. Molten, assist Articuno and resist the flames of the god of fire. Then let Articuno use Water Wave. Zahu calmly commanded the 2 Pokémon in the air. Anger can enhance the power of Pokémon, but that is the attack power, not the defense. If Zahu remembered correctly, when the sea god Lugia here was fighting the 3 mythical birds, he couldn't kill the 3, and the 3 on the opposite side were reckless, so he was beaten up at first, but when he was about to be beaten, he didn't care about anything, and used a destruction death light to kill the 3 in seconds. The wild Moltres was out of control with anger, and the flames on its body were bubbling out, getting stronger and stronger. It wanted to have a fair fight, but how could Articuno and Moltres, who received Zahu's orders, fight it head on? According to Zahu's order, he first used White Mist to block the wild Moltres' sight, and then Zahu Moltres acted as a meat shield, while Articuno was always ready to find an opportunity to release water waves, which made the wild Moltres angry and frustrated. Thinking that he was an adult divine beast, he couldn't beat 2 juniors, and the fire of anger almost burned his brain. The extreme anger stimulated the extreme strength, and a blazing flame spurted out, emitting extreme heat. Seeing this, Articuno and Zahu Moltres hurriedly dodged, but the flame that was spurted out actually turned in the air, and turned into a flame in the shape of Moltres, and then hit Articuno's back. Articuno screamed and a few feathers fell off. Then the flame changed, and it didn't disappear, but it always existed, just like a real Moltres made of element, fighting 2 against 2 with the wild Moltres. Zahu saw this scene, and was so shocked, that he almost fell out of Mewtwo's telekinesis. He really didn't know that Moltres had such strength. This was impossible. If they had the power of this kind of energy clone, the 3 sacred birds would not be called the 3 stupid birds. Just looking at the increasingly brave wild Moltres, Zahu did not have time to think about it, and quickly commanded the 2 birds to resist the battle. It is better to have no book than to believe in it blindly. Instead of entangled in these things, it is better to verify it yourself. Besides, the sacred beasts themselves are also a place of doubt. In the animation, many times it is unclear, and there are some contradictions. For example, the sacred beasts in the theater version will basically be weakened in the official animation. Then Zahu still can't figure out what the world he lives in is based on. In the final analysis, this is a real world, and there are certain deviations from animation, games, comics, etc. It is closest to animation, but not completely similar. Zahu, who got rid of the shackles, had a brighter look in his eyes. Just give it a try. Even if you can control the flames to turn into a bird, the transformed one is definitely not your real strength. Molten, speed up your flight and protect Articuno. In addition, absorb these flames to improve yourself, Zahu said. Upon hearing this, Zahu Moltres vibrated its wings so fast that it almost created an illusion. Unlike Articuno, it did not have a deep bond with Zahu, but they both wanted to become stronger, especially when fighting against a Moltres of the same species. With a strong desire to fight, Zahu Moltres' speed exceeded its previous peak value. It circled around Articuno and constantly accepted the baptism of fire. While being hurt, it also used the wild Moltres to improve and temper its own fire. It was painful, but the improvement effect was also significant. The wild Moltres flapped its wings, and the flames were raised to the peak. It suddenly spurted out a ball of flames, directly wrapping Zahu Moltres. Zahu Moltres struggled hard, but found that this ball of flame was much stronger than it expected, and it couldn't break free. Mewtwo was stunned when he saw this. In terms of strength, this flame can directly break through, but in terms of skills, it can't play so well. Molten, don't struggle blindly. Feel the power of the flames around you. Try to absorb the flames at this time, then spray the flames, form a protective shield around to offset some of the power, and finally use the divine bad to fly out, Zahu said. Hearing Zahu's words, Zahu Molten stopped struggling, took a deep breath of flames, and used Molten Bird's special ability to directly absorb the outer layer of flames into its body. The powerful heat flow rushed in its body, and for the first time in its life, Zahu Molten felt a hot taste. But when he thought that, if he gave up here, he would fail completely next, and the ice bird hadn't fallen yet, how could he fall? Zahu Molten roared, and the flames in his body completed the transformation in an instant. With a move of the divine bird, he attacked the wild Molten Bird together with the flames of the wild Molten Bird. Zahu Molten Bird flew quickly, dispersed the first flame transformed Molten Bird, and then slammed into the wild Molten Bird, knocking it straight to the rock wall of the island on the side. Seeing this scene, Zahu smiled comfortably. It seemed that, although this Moltres was much stronger than he had imagined, it was not so strong that he could not compete with it. As long as he dared to fight, 2 against 1, plus his own brain, he might not really be defeated by this stupid bird. The wild Moltres that was hit against the rock wall was stunned for a moment, as if he had not expected that he would be injured by Zahu Moltres. The anger in his heart burned to the extreme, completely burning his brain, and he fought with all his strength. Zahu Moltres got the advantage, and also boldly rushed up to fight it alone, even ignoring Zahu's command. In this world, the most undesirable thing is to be arrogant, whether it is a human or a bird. The price of Zahu Moltres' arrogance was that he was hit from the sky to the sea by the angry wild Moltres. If it were not for Mewtwo who helped him for Zahu's sake, his life would be in danger. After defeating Zahu's Moltres, the wild Moltres was jealous and excited, and extremely inflated, thinking that this was the strength it should have. It opened its mouth wide and suddenly burst out a destructive death ray towards Articuno. Articuno, mirror reflection. Zahu shouted. He didn't expect his Moltres to suddenly expand and destroy the originally good situation, but he was even happier to see that the wild Moltres also expanded and used the destructive death ray. A layer of light brilliance flashed on Articuno's body, and it directly resisted the destructive death ray of the wild Moltres. However, this time it was not as easily defeated as the last time it fought against Zahu's Moltres. Instead, it showed a trace of pain, and could not bounce back immediately, but fell into a stalemate. Articuno, hold on, bounce back. Zahu subconsciously clenched his fists. Although even if he couldn't win, Moltres couldn't do anything to him. but he still wanted to defeat Moltres with his own strength. Articuno endured Moltres' all-out attack and didn't even have the strength to cry. His head tilted and looked at Zahu on the side, as if some power was rising faintly. Zahu looked at the extremely uncomfortable Articuno, and their eyes met. At this moment, it was as if he had entered Articuno's inner world. When their eyes met, a mysterious power rose. Zahu's side suddenly changed, as if he had turned into Articuno. Then a pain came over him. He didn't know whether he shared Articuno's damage or shared Articuno's damage. But at this time, Zahu could no longer care about anything. He had only one thought in his mind: to defeat the wild Moltres. With a clenched fist, Zahu roared, and his body movements were exactly the same as Articuno's. Articuno suddenly gained a force, and its body shook, rebounding Moltres' destructive death light back and hitting Moltres. Moltres received twice the damage of its own attack, and could not bear it immediately, and fell down, losing its ability to fight. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 129. Fight Moltres first, then Zapdos. After Moltres was defeated, Zahu also came out of the strange feeling just now. He looked at Articuno on the side with a look of astonishment. Articuno also flew directly over, first rubbing against Zahu, expressing his joy. Even the legendary Moltres was defeated, which showed that his strength had really improved a lot, and then looked at Zahu strangely, as if asking what happened just now. Zahu shrugged, and kept muttering in his heart. Why did the feeling just now look so much like the bond transformation of Zyozzy and Greninja? But Zyozzy and Greninja can do it, because the characteristic of Greninja is a 1 in a million bond transformation, but he has never heard that Articuno also has this characteristic. In addition, Articuno does not have a Mega Evolution. But if it is not a bond transformation, what happened just now? Zahu scratched his head, still unable to figure it out. He didn't notice it before. Why did his problems become more and more after meeting the legendary beast? No matter how hard he tried to figure it out, Zahu simply gave up and touched Articuno's head and said, "Forget it, let's go down first to help you and Moltres heal." Articuno nodded and took Zahu down. Mewtwo was bored and followed the others down. Zahu took out the special potion he had prepared early in the morning and fed it to Articuno and his Moltres, which had been beaten and lost its ability to fight. Articuno accepted the treatment with peace of mind, but Moltres seemed a little embarrassed. During the fight just now, it had not listened to Zahu's command for a while. "Okay, don't bow your head. They are all my Pokémon, and they are my little brothers. It's okay to make small mistakes occasionally." Zahu touched Moltres' head and then gave it a bottle of special healing potion. Zahu's potions were all taken from professional masters. They were all natural, harmless, and had a burst of recovery ability. It didn't take long for the two Pokémon to recover. Then the wild Moltres, that had been beaten to the point of losing its fighting ability, gradually recovered its fighting ability and slowly walked towards Zahu. Articuno and Zahu's Moltres subconsciously stood in front of Zahu, like two big guards. "You have the ability to command Moltres and Articuno. Let this Moltres go back to the Fire Island with me, and I will increase its flame." The wild Moltres said to Zahu. "Back to your Fire Island? The enshrined flame pearl?" Zahu said. "You actually know, not bad." The wild Moltres nodded. "Have you been away from your Fire Island for a long time? If I remember correctly, it seems that the three of you will fight for territory. If you go back now, you may be beaten by a bird that steals your territory," Zahu said. Moltres heard Zahu's words, lowered his head and thought, it is really possible. Thinking of this, he suddenly closed his eyes, and a strange light flashed across his body, and then his entire physical strength was rapidly increasing. Is this feather rest? Zahu realized belatedly. This skill can restore half of the body's health. After thinking about it, he was suddenly a little glad that no one was commanding this stupid bird. Otherwise, if he had used feather rest just now, he would probably have lost. You two should learn it too. It's a very useful skill, Zahu said to Articuno and Moltres. In the game, after using Feather Rest, it is equivalent to losing the flying attribute and will still be attacked by ground skills, but in reality, it does not exist. As long as the wings are still there, you can fly freely. Just like some Pokémon in the game, do not have the skill of flying, but here they have wings and can still fly. Articuno and Moltres nodded in tacit understanding, observing carefully and learning hard. After a long while, the wild Moltres opened its eyes, obviously recovered, and then flapped its wings and flew towards its hometown, Fire Island. Let's go together. It's almost time to verify whether the one you beat is the one I said. Zahu said to Mewtwo first, and then to Kona. Sister Kona, the end of the world should definitely not come next. Now I will take you to see the legendary beasts fighting each other. They are real gods. Kona nodded and showed an excited expression. Traveling with Zahu was thrilling at times, but it was really interesting. A group of people flew to the Fire Island together. The Fire Island, which was supposed to be sunny, was now covered with dark clouds and lightning. When Moltres saw this scene, it immediately realized which stupid bird had robbed its territory during the time it was captured. It rushed to the inside of the island with its whole body on fire. Then, not long after, a strong electric current burst out and rushed straight into the sky. Hundreds of electric currents gathered and formed an electric grid. Then, two rays of light, one yellow and one red, rushed out from inside. Moltres, who wanted to take back the territory, and Zapdos, who was unwilling to spit it out after robbing it, started a full-scale war. At the beginning, they were evenly matched, but soon, Moltres fell into a disadvantage. After all, it had just fought with Zahu's two birds. Although it recovered with the feather perch skill, it was still only 80% to 90% of its peak state. Moltres was about to lose, and was anxious. He yelled at Zahu for help. Zahu thought about it, nodded, and asked his Moltres and Articuno to fly up, to accompany the wild Moltres to beat Zapdos. With the support of the new force, Moltres suddenly became stronger, and then beat Zapdos in turn. Seeing that it couldn't beat it, Zapdos wanted to go back to its hometown, but at this time, Moltres refused to let Zapdos go. You want to grab the territory, then grab the territory, and then you want to leave, if you can't grab it? Wishful thinking. Zapdos was beaten by 3 birds, and he was angry. He screamed and made an emergency call. Then a yellow light rushed in from a distance, and it was a small Zapdos. When Zahu's Articuno and Moltres saw the Zapdos, they both looked like enemies meeting and getting jealous. Obviously, the one that was called to rescue was the one that was born with Zahu's 2 divine birds. Molten continues to fight. Articuno separates and goes to beat up Zapdos. Zahu's eyes lit up slightly, and this time the goal could be successfully completed. Articuno quickly got rid of the big Zapdos, then vibrated its wings, and frost danced. Unlike Moltres' unilateral restraint, it and Zapdos mutually restrained each other. When it was much stronger than Zapdos, it was completely a unilateral beating. Big fire, use flame vortex. Little fire, use heat wind to increase firepower. Zahu saw that Articuno was not in any danger. On the contrary, although the 2 Moltres suppressed Zapdos, they did not gain an overwhelming advantage, so he couldn't help but give orders. Zahu's Moltres responded without thinking, while the wild Moltres was stunned for a while, and it took a long time to react that big fire was calling him. Then, the fire god's Moltres also followed the command. Strength is the key. After being beaten, they will behave themselves. Under Zahu's command, the 2 Moltres soon pressed the Zapdos to the ground and rubbed it hard. Finally, Articuno took action on his own, spraying the freezing ray and knocking Zapdos down. Then Zahu threw a Pokeball without hesitation, and with a few movements, he captured it perfectly. Chapter 130. I've already bought the popcorn. You just show me this. Human, how dare you subdue our Zapdos? Seeing Zahu's action, Zapdos didn't care about being beaten to a pulp, and said angrily, I have subdued Articuno and Moltres, and I lack a Zapdos from you? Zahu rolled his eyes in disdain. After defeating Moltres, he was a little proud. Damn bastard. Moltres, how did you do it? Why did you agree to let it subdue Moltres? Zapdos asked angrily. The big Moltres looked a little embarrassed, and then the strength of its attack on Zapdos soared. Did I agree to this? Didn't you see that I was beaten up by that guy? After I came back, I almost couldn't beat you. Zapdos was stunned by the beating and didn't understand why Moltres started to beat him like a brainless person. However, under Moltres' high-intensity attack, Zapdos also fell into an angry state, and the lightning on its body increased significantly, and it suddenly had a tendency to surpass and suppress the two Moltres. Zahu remained calm. The angry Zapdos was much stronger than usual, but still much stronger than the Moltres that had completely lost control just now. The big Moltres was much stronger than Articuno, so there was still no problem in a 2-on-1 battle. After a fierce battle, Zapdos was knocked to the ground. Although it did not turn into a circle-eyed beast, because of the dignity of a mythical beast, anyone with a discerning eye could see that it had lost its ability to fight. Sister Kona, are you interested in having an Articuno? Zahu suddenly asked. Huh? What do you mean? Kona asked in confusion. Of course I'm interested, but can I have it just because I want it? If you want it, I'll help you fool them. Zahu showed a sly smile on his face, took 2 bottles of potion, and walked towards Moltres and Zapdos, threw them to each and said, don't worry, they are all non-toxic, just heal your wounds. Moltres did not doubt it, and drank it directly. Zapdos showed doubt in his eyes, but seeing that Moltres drank it so directly, he followed suit and drank it. The effect was immediate. Zapdos immediately felt that his body injuries had recovered by 70% or 80%. He looked at Zahu in surprise and said, human, don't try to please me so that I can agree to let you subdue the Zapdos. I don't need to please you. Anyway, you can't beat me. I'll train Zapdos after a while. If it's 3 against 1, you are no match for me. Zahu said. Nonsense. Zapdos said angrily. Don't be angry. In terms of strength, you can't beat me. In terms of luck, your luck is only slightly better than Moltres. Moltres was the first to be caught by humans, and then you took the initiative to come and get beaten. Only Articuno is the best. Now he is still comfortably in his own home, neither caught nor beaten. Zahu said. Zapdos and Moltres were stunned. It seemed to make sense. One of them was caught, and the other was beaten, but Articuno was the only one who didn't get anything. This is unfair. We are all 3 sacred birds. Why should we 2 birds be beaten? But it doesn't have to. If we want to be beaten, we should be beaten together. The 2 mythical birds looked at each other, then nodded in tacit understanding. Let's go to the ice island and beat up Articuno, not for anything else, just for fairness. Deep in the sea, undercurrents surged. Lugia sensed the movement above and reluctantly fluttered its wings. It floated to the surface and looked at the 2 mythical birds and said, you 2 stop fighting, and Zapdos, go back to your home. This place doesn't belong to you. Seeing the boss coming out, Moltres and Zapdos could only helplessly stop their plans. Zapdos shrank its neck and flew back to its own territory in disgrace. Lugia. Zahu looked at the Lugia that suddenly appeared and was very surprised. According to the development of the plot, shouldn't it come out to appease the 3 mythical birds when they are fighting? Why did it appear before the fight even started? Human, thank you for saving Moltres, defeating an evil human, and saving the world. So don't let 2 Moltres and Zapdos fight Articuno again to cause a possible world crisis. This world is a beautiful world where everyone lives together, isn't it? Don't destroy it easily. Lugia looked at Zahu and said earnestly, okay, I'll pay attention next time. Zahu smiled. Since you're out now, the fight can't be fought, so of course I'd better not say anything. But don't bluff me, okay? The world was destroyed in the animation because the 3 mythical birds collectively lost control and turned into 3 stupid birds. When I fight now, Zapdos and Moltres are both sober, 2 against 1, and the element will not go out of control. Otherwise, the world will be destroyed at any time. Is it because your mythical beasts are too precious, or is this world too fragile? You are the strongest mythical beast in the Orange Islands, as this guy said, right? Sure enough, it's different from the one I saw before. Mewtwo suddenly spoke up and looked at Lugia with a provocative look. What do you want to do? Lugia said. Come and fight me. If I defeat you, this guy will be obedient. Mewtwo glanced at Zahu, then said to Lugia, if you want to fight, then come on. Although Lugia didn't understand why Mewtwo suddenly wanted to fight it was not afraid, since Mewtwo wanted to fight. The mythical beast had the pride of mythical beast. It was just a good character, not a coward. Did you fight? Can I take a video? Zahu said with shining eyes. He was just looking for an opportunity to study the strength of the mythical beasts. Now these two big guys are fighting. It's like a pillow just after dozing off. Mewtwo glanced at Zahu coldly, without saying much. The superpower of the whole body was condensed, ready to fire at full force next. Lugia also felt the unusual superpower of Mewtwo. His eyes slightly lit up, and a superpower that was no less than Mewtwo rose in him. For a moment, the atmosphere became tense. Zahu also felt the smell of gunpowder, and was looking forward to the result of the battle. Theoretically, Lugia should have the advantage. Mewtwo is young, and has no divine position. But if we look at the performance in the movie, Mewtwo has a lot of exaggeration when it appears. First, it is considered the strongest Pokémon in the world by Sakaki. Later, before it appears in the movie, it caused a tsunami. Then Lugia appeared, and was beaten up all over the place. He almost never took action. The last wave of attacks was made by the collector named Gelrota, who attacked with 3 rings of high-tech weapons. In order to save himself, he used a destructive death ray, and instantly killed the 3 mythical birds. He also broke free from the restraints, but he was exhausted. Yes, exhausted. It really is. One is the screenwriter's own son, and the other is the screenwriter's fake son. Different treatment. But even Moltres can explode, let alone Lugia, so Zahu can't judge the result, but he is more looking forward to it. Then, the 2 mythical beasts looked at each other, and the 2 powerful superpowers communicated with each other, and then without saying a word, the 2 Pokémon dived into the water together. Zahu, who had just prepared the camera, saw this scene and the smile on his face froze immediately. I've already bought popcorn, and you're showing me this? You can fight on land. Why don't you fight? If you really don't like land, you can fight in the sky. At least I can watch. But what are you going to do in the water? You know, none of you are water type. Especially you, Lugia. Don't think that you are water type, just because you are called Poseidon. You are superpowered and can fly. Okay. Please fly freely in the blue sky, and give full play to your flying ability. Use your exclusive flying skills. Okay. Chapter 131. The idea of creating a god. Next, do we have to wait? Kona said. Wait a minute, maybe the winner will show up on his own. Besides, doesn't Moltres need to improve its strength? Zahu said. That's right. Kona nodded. The wild Moltres seemed to be very grateful to Zahu for helping it beat up Zapdos just now. It cooperated very well, and led Zahu and the others to a flame orb, then pecked out the flame orb with its mouth and spit it on Zahu Moltres. Zahu Moltres spurted out a mouthful of flame on the flame orb. The flame orb absorbed the flame and immediately became brighter. It spun around above Zahu Moltres' head, and then a ball of blazing flames automatically burned on Zahu Moltres' body, as if it had turned into a flame cocoon, completely covering up Moltres' figure. Zahu saw that his Moltres seemed unable to end the inheritance for a while, so he released the newly captured Zapdos. Just like when Moltres was first captured, his face was full of dissatisfaction, as if he wanted to be free. Then Zahu used the same trick to deceive, repeating the same words he said to Moltres. The intelligence of Zapdos was not much higher than Moltres, and it quickly put itself in the right position, and was deceived by Zahu to call Articuno the boss. Congratulations, you have completed the achievement, the collector of 3 mythical birds. Kona smiled as he looked at Zahu, who was teasing the 2 mythical birds. I was originally thinking of finding an opportunity to beat up Articuno, and then find you another one, but I didn't expect it to be destroyed by Lugia. When we get to the Johto area, I will find you another one. Zahu said. No need, that's a mythical beast, not a cabbage on the side of the road. How can I tell you that you can catch it if you want to? Kona said. Because I really know that there is one somewhere in Johto, so as long as you work hard, you can catch it. Those who believe in me, although they cannot live forever, can have mythical beasts. Zahu said. Then I will sit and wait for you. If there is no Articuno by then, I will steal your Articuno. Kona smiled. It doesn't matter. You can't command without my consent anyway. Zahu shrugged. That's not certain. When I get along well with Articuno, maybe it will betray you. Kona said. It depends on what kind of relationship you can develop with Articuno. By the way, speaking of Johto, Kona, have you been to the Whirlpool Islands? Zahu asked. Yes, the Whirlpool Islands water Pokémon competition is held every 3 years in the Whirlpool Islands. It is very famous in the Chengdu area of Kanto. When I was traveling, it happened to be held there, so I went there and won the championship and became the return water warrior. What, do you want to go to? That's just right. They will hold it next year. By then, you will have almost finished traveling to the Orange Islands. When you challenge the Johto Alliance, you can challenge it together. If you win, you can get the mysterious water droplets, which greatly increase the power of the water Pokémon's special moves. Kona said. No, I'm asking if you are familiar with that place. Zahu asked. Fortunately, the Kanto region is inseparable. I'm quite familiar with the waters here. Do you want to go there to catch Pokémon? But the Pokémon there are not very special. The more representative one is the Sun Coral, which is good, but not particularly strong. Aren't you too lazy to bother to learn about it, because it is not a mythical beast? Kona said. Sister Kona, have you forgotten that the purpose of holding the Whirlpool Island Cup is actually to celebrate the sea god Lugia? Zahu said. Are you planning to capture Lugia? Kona was surprised. Now that we have gathered the 3 mythical birds, of course we have to go a step further and gather their bosses. And to be precise, it is abduction. Zahu said. If he remembered correctly, there were 2 Lugia, one big and one small, near the Whirlpool Islands. There was basically no way to capture the big one, but if you are lucky, you may be able to abduct the small one. If you can really capture that Lugia, Zahu really has a very bold and even crazy idea. If the 4 Pokémon he cultivated become the strongest in the tribe and replace the current 4 Pokémon to become gods. Just thinking about it makes Zahu happy. Cultivating excellent creatures is Zahu's greatest interest. Kona glanced at Zahu and then looked at Moltres on the side. He has known Zahu for so many years, so how could he not know him? He could tell at a glance that Zahu was dreaming again. Just when Zahu was dreaming about the future, the flame cocoon on the altar finally cracked. Moltres flapped its wings, shattered the flames, and emerged from the fire, exuding stunning beauty and a powerful aura. Zahu was slightly stunned. Compared with the Ho-Oh, Moltres at this moment was more like the legendary Phoenix in the past. After absorbing the flames of the flame bead, Moltres first nodded to Zahu, the master, indicating that even if I become stronger, I will still be your bird, and then made a provocative cry to Articuno. It's time to decide who is the real younger brother. As the first mythical beast that Zahu had captured, Articuno would not show weakness. It made the same sharp sound, then flapped its wings, and flew into the sky. Moltres followed closely, turning into a red light and chasing Articuno. Then, 2 rays of light, one red and one blue, clashed fiercely in the sky, and the weather and climate around Asia Island changed accordingly. Zahu stood on the ground, shaking his head secretly, and was also looking forward to the outcome of the battle in the sky. To be honest, he certainly expected Articuno, who had a deep bond with him, to win, but Moltres was also his Pokémon. Although the 5 fingers were also long and short, they had to be balanced on the surface, otherwise the Pokémon would easily get upset. After thinking about it, Zahu walked to the side of the island and released the giant Gyarados. This time, he called it over to deal with the crisis. Now that the collector has fallen, this guy will naturally go back to talk about life with his little lover. I'll go to the Whirlpool Islands to find Lugia later, and I should also participate in the Whirlpool Island Cup. That competition requires 2 water-type Pokémon to participate. When the time comes, I will ask Miss Joy to teleport you over, Zahu said, touching Gyarados' head. Gyarados licked Zahu's face with a little reluctance, and then swam back to the direction of Miss Joy's island. Why don't you just let him swim back? Why don't you just use the Pokémon transmitter? Kona said, puzzled. Because Miss Joy, who is sailing, is more difficult to contact, and the key is that this guy said that he hasn't had a good time in the sea for a long time, so he plans to swim back by himself. I threw the Pokeball directly into his mouth. Zahu said. Swimming back, this project is a bit huge. Kona said. Fortunately, Groudon can walk back from Kalos to Hone, and Gyarados is a water overlord, so it's still easy for him to swim back. Zahu said. Grow walks back to Hone. Kona looked at Zahu strangely. Why did she always feel that what Zahu said was not in the same dimension as the world she was in? Chapter 132 Pink Devil. The trip to Asia Island was over. Zahu's two divine birds were both strengthened and saved the world ahead of time. Zahu and Kona both felt that the trip was worthwhile. However, Zahu did not rush to the last gym, the Durian Gym, but traveled around the island with Kona to see the differences of the Orange Islands. Those who didn't know would never think that the two of them were challenging the Orange Alliance. Until one day, Zahu, who was leisurely basking in the sun on the beach of a certain island, suddenly received a video chat message from a Pokémon Center. Zahu curiously clicked on the video projection, and then unexpectedly, the images of Xiaozi, Xiaomao, and Shinji appeared. How did the three of you appear together? Zahu asked curiously. We should ask you this, brother Zahu. The three of us have already obtained 4 gym badges, and then we happened to arrive together. Because the battle queue is the next day, the three of us are now fighting for who will challenge first. But while fighting, I suddenly found that you haven't arrived yet, Shinji said with a puzzled look. This is unscientific. Have you three reached the last level? Not bad, pretty fast. Zahu yawned lazily, without any awareness of being a leader, but being overtaken by his 3 younger brothers, and then learning from his mistakes. So, brother Zahu, why haven't you arrived yet? Xiaomao said with a strange look on his face. Because someone has been enjoying the sun too much recently. Kona, who was wearing a swimsuit, drank a sip of orange juice leisurely and interrupted. Oh Xiaoxia, Xiaojian and Xiaomao behind Xiaozi looked very understanding and smiled meaningfully. Brother, you are lazy again. Xiaozi had an expression that he knew you would be lazy. His thoughts were different from the others, but the results were the same. Okay, since the three of you are here, it's almost time for me to get up and fight the last Durian Gym, and then go to the Orange League Winner Cup. Wait, I'll be there soon. Zahu said. Wait, brother Zahu, you haven't given your opinion yet. Who should be the first to join us? Xiaomao said. You can't challenge the Orange League Winners Cup too often, so it's best to win it in one battle, so that some of you will not feel unbalanced if you pass it once and some don't. Let's do this. Xiaozi will be the first. Zahu said. Brother Zahu, do you think Xiaozi will definitely pass? Let him go first and provide us with information. Xiaomao pouted, and Shinji had the same expression, but his personality was more introverted, unlike Xiaomao who said whatever he wanted. No, I haven't seen how the three of you have grown recently, so it's hard to comment. The reason I'll let Xiaozi go first is that Shinji and you are both data streams, and there will be precise analysis before the challenge. However, Xiaozi, whether he knows the opponent's Pokémon lineup and fighting style, it makes no difference to him. He has a similar winning rate if he goes first or third. It basically doesn't affect the result, but you and Shinji are different. Zahu said. Xiaomao and Shinji turned their heads to look at Xiaozi, then nodded and said, that's right. What are you doing? Didn't I tell you about the chief trainer's Pokémon? As for the battle method, we know everything. What's the point of the battle? The battle is interesting, because the result is unpredictable. Xiaozi said. That's right, so your battles are often unexpected. Okay, since the three of you have challenged, I will end my trip for the time being. I can't fall behind you three too much. So after the three of you finish fighting, don't leave, just wait for me to come over. If I can make it in time, maybe I can see the last one of you play. Zahu said. In that case, I'll fight the last one. Shinji said. Then I don't care, I can fight the second one. Xiaomao thought for a while and said. Okay. Zahu said the last sentence, then hung up the video chat, twisted his neck and said, Sister Kona, enough healthcare, next, we should go to fight. Okay, it's the same, let's find Dragonite and Golduck first. Kona said. Because they were at the seaside, the water Pokémon did not stay in the Pokéball, but swam in various places. Xiaozi nodded, and at this time, Zahu and Kona's group of Pokémon suddenly floated on the sea. Each of them had their eyes closed, and there were traces of graffiti all over their bodies. What happened? Kona was shocked. These Pokémon were her main pets. How could they be graffitied so easily? Was it a powerful mythical beast? No, which mythical beast is so boring? Pink Devil. Compared with Kona's surprise, Zahu uttered these 4 words with difficulty. This kind of unique graffiti, except for the first generation of Jigglypuff, no other Pokémon has such a bad habit. Pink Devil? What kind of new Pokémon is this? Named after the devil, is it a ghost or evil type? Kona asked in confusion, but before Zahu could answer, a beautiful singing voice rang out, and then the whole person fainted. Sure enough, it's that one, Zahu said calmly, while lying on the chair. After crossing, he had a rare golden finger, and his soul power was particularly strong. Ordinary mental attacks were ineffective against him. Even the ancient Jigglypuff couldn't sing him to sleep, let alone ordinary Jigglypuff. On the rock on the side, Jigglypuff jumped out from nowhere. Seeing that Kona was also asleep, he puffed up his face in anger, and the whole Pokémon was so angry that he turned into a balloon. He pulled out his microphone and turned into a colored pen in a minute, ready to doodle. Little Jigglypuff, stop it. Zahu stretched out his hand to stop the little Jigglypuff and pinched Jigglypuff's little cheek. It was okay to draw others, but drawing his girlfriend would be a thunderbolt. Barley Jigglypuff first cried out in a suppressed voice, then jumped onto Zahu with a look of surprise, eyes wide open, carefully looking at Zahu, and found that Zahu was really not asleep, and was immediately overjoyed, and took out his microphone, and began to sing Bobo. Then Zahu touched Jigglypuff's round body with a calm face from beginning to end, without any sign of sleepiness. Barley Jigglypuff finally found someone who could listen to his singing from beginning to end, and was immediately overjoyed, rubbing Zahu's cheek with his round body excitedly. Okay, I've listened to your song, so don't draw Kona's sister, now let's go, Zahu said. Barley Jigglypuff shook his head quickly, his eyes fixed on Zahu. You said, you want to be my Pokémon? Zahu said with a look of surprise. Barley Jigglypuff nodded his head wildly. Zahu was the only person who could listen to his singing from beginning to end so far. How could he let him go easily? Looking at Jigglypuff who wanted to follow him, Zahu was helpless and at a loss. Speaking of potential, this Pokémon's potential is definitely top notch. With a singing trick and a loudspeaker, it can massacre the city. It's not particularly strong in a single fight, but if it's a group battle, it can be called a harvesting weapon. It's safe to carry it around. Let's not talk about anything else. Let's talk about the last time we broke into the Rocket Team base. At that time, if this Jigglypuff was with him, Zahu didn't have to fight at all. He just let Jigglypuff speak. In addition, like the ancient Jigglypuff, it had the habit of graffiti on other people's faces when they fell asleep after listening to its songs. Zahu even suspected that the 2 Jigglypuffs were of the same lineage and had some kind of blood relationship. But the problem is that this Jigglypuff speaks anytime and anywhere, and except Zahu, everyone else will fall asleep after listening to it. Not to mention that it can't be used to play in the league game at all. Just say that on normal days, when it suddenly gets happy halfway through the road, it opens its throat and roars. Will Zahu watch his companions lying on the road, or carry everyone on his own? But he does have enough talent, and he is really not affected by it, so it is not particularly appropriate not to catch him. Especially Zahu may not be able to get rid of it. This Jigglypuff followed Zyozzy for a whole season in the first generation of the original series. He can be found in Kanto, Orange Islands, and Johto. He will come out whenever he wants, and he is elusive. It is really unknown how he caught up with him. Zahu is really not sure if he can get rid of it. While Zahu was hesitating, Jigglypuff had already taken the initiative to find an empty Pokeball of Zahu, and then slapped it with lightning speed, and then went in extremely quickly. Zahu was stunned, and then quickly went crazy. Is this wrong? This is the case with Golduck and Jigglypuff. The Pokémon on the Orange Islands are poisonous. They followed me one by one, and even paid for it, but they didn't ask me, a Pokémon trainer, whether I really want to capture you. Looking at the Pokeball, Zahu took a deep breath and finally showed a helpless smile. Forget it, this guy has made a decision for me, so I will just take it. He called Jigglypuff out again, and made 3 rules. Normally, he could not sing, unless he allowed it. He could only hold a concert at night, when he was asleep. This way, it would not matter if Kona and other Pokémon fell asleep. Jigglypuff nodded, indicating that he understood, and then excitedly sang a song. After singing, he returned to the Pokeball. Zahu didn't know how to arrange Jigglypuff in the future. If he was in the wild, it would be fine for him to sing, but if he was in a Pokémon Center or a hotel, it would be a big deal if Jigglypuff opened his mouth. But at this point, he had to take it one step at a time. Zahu shook his head and wanted to wake Kona up, but suddenly he found a very serious problem: a silent island, no one around, a sleeping beauty. These three conditions were mixed together. Should he do something? Looking down at the unconscious Kona, Zahu was thoughtful. Beast or worse than a beast? This is a serious question. Chapter 133, Relay Battle, The Glory of Fire and Lightning. Liu Ganjim. Challenge rules. Both sides use 2 Pokémon to fight in relays. If one of the 2 Pokémon loses its ability to fight, then that side will be considered to have lost its ability to fight. I will send out Alakazam and Galagara. Challenger. Take out the Pokémon you want to challenge. Liu Gan Island, Dragon God Hotel, in the battlefield. The last gym trainer of the Orange League, the Northern Star of the Southern Cross, Liuli, said to Zahu. After conquering Jigglypuff, Zahu finally ended his vacation life and began to seriously challenge the Orange League. Riding on the Dragonite, Zahu and Kona arrived at the last gym of the Orange League in just a few days. As for what Zahu did that night, only he knew it. Facing Liuli's 2 Pokémon, Zahu's expression was a little serious. Both Pokémon were well cultivated, and there was also a psychic type that he didn't like to face. After thinking for a while, Zahu threw out 2 Pokéballs and said, "Come out, little enemy." As Zahu finished speaking, 2 rays of light, one yellow and one red, appeared. Zapdos and Moltres made a stunning appearance, one flashing with lightning, the other surrounded by flames, and flapping their wings. They were full of might. Liuli was stunned, and like all those who saw the 2 mythical beasts for the first time, they all showed a shocked expression, thinking, how can these 2 mythical beasts fight? Before they could figure it out, Moltres and Zapdos suddenly disliked each other, and then Moltres released flames and Zapdos burst out lightning. Then, before they did anything, the 2 Pokémons confronted each other. The red flames and the yellow lightning, the 2 bursting forces bombarded each other like needles and wheat spikes, making a violent explosion, and neither of them was willing to give in to the other. Liuli was surprised at first. She didn't expect Zahu to be unable to restrain his 2 Pokémon, but soon turned to surprise. The most important thing for Pokémon relay battles is the unity of Pokémon. If there is no unity, then no matter how powerful it is useless. Alakazam, use illusion on Moltres. Liuli gave the order. With her eyes, she could tell that among Zahu's 2 Pokémon, Zapdos had a more aggressive temper, so she used Zapdos attack to deal with Moltres first. Alakazam moved the spoon in his hand, and immediately a ball of colorful light burst out, covering Moltres. Even Moltres, which had been upgraded, could not be completely ignored when facing Alakazam's illusion. Although it was not restricted to the point of being unable to move, its movement speed was almost slow, and it soon received a 100,000 volt attack from Zapdos. Garagara, use Bone Boomerang. Seeing that her plan was successful, Liuli took advantage of the victory and pursued. Upon hearing this, Garagara immediately threw the bone stick in his hand, spun in the air, and hit Moltres back hard. Zahu's face darkened. You must know that Bone Boomerang is a ground type skill, and in terms of attribute restraint, ground type is ineffective against flying type, so theoretically, Garagara's Bone Boomerang should be ineffective against Moltres and Zapdos, but theory is just theory. Because most ground skills can only work on the ground, and flying skills are in the sky, so they are completely immune. However, the physical skill of Bone Boomerang is an exception, because creatures are not data. Even if there is no skill power, if you, an ordinary person, hit a flying Pokémon with a brick, the Pokémon will still feel pain. As for the internal fight between Zapdos and Moltres, because Zahu had expected it long ago, there was no question of being angry. At present, among the 3 mythical birds in Zahu's hands, Articuno is the strongest, Moltres is second, and Zapdos is third, because Articuno is the strongest, and has the deepest bond with Zahu. Although Zahu has not entered the same realm of bond evolution to improve his strength, after several battles, his strength is still the highest. Even if Moltres gets the flame tempering of the flame orb, it is still a lot worse, so Moltres and Zapdos have not challenged it much. But Moltres and Zapdos are different. In terms of strength, Moltres is stronger, but the wild Zapdos in the Orange Islands seems to think that it was because of him that Zapdos was captured by Zahu, so he also helped Zapdos to increase its lightning power. As a result, Moltres is not particularly strong. In addition, the attribute Restraint of Electricity is strong, so Zapdos is not convinced. It fights with it every 3 days and fights with it every 5 days. Although Moltres can beat Zapdos every time, it is only a little better each time. In the end, it can hardly move, so Zapdos is not convinced every time. Zahu deliberately let Moltres and Zapdos come out this time, just to use such a doubles match to ease the relationship between Moltres and Zapdos. He remembered that in the animation, Zaoz's Charizard and Pikachu made peace in the relay challenge. But he didn't expect that the relationship between these two birds is so bad. Kona frowned when he saw this scene. Under normal circumstances, trainers will not subdue Pokémon that are natural enemies, just like no trainer has ever subdued both Snake and Skank, two natural enemies of Pokémon that fight as soon as they meet. It is a good thing that Zahu subdued the 3 mythical birds. The relationship between the 3 mythical birds is not as bad as that between Snake and Skank, but they are still natural enemies, especially for the most hot-tempered Zapdos. Zapdos flapped its wings vigorously, and a strong electric current burst out of its body. A terrifying thundering trick burst out directly, hitting Moltres directly. Moltres was in unbearable pain, and couldn't help but let out a cry of grief, and was knocked to the ground. Giragla, use the self-sacrifice attack, Liuli shouted. If it landed, it would be easier to attack. Giragla ran at full speed, turned into a white light, and then hit Moltres fiercely. Moltres let out another mournful cry, looking at Giragla, and wanted to spray flames, but before it could spray out, Alakazam's illusion came again, lifting Moltres out of thin air, and then Zapdos came at full speed, attacking Moltres with an electric current. At this moment, the relay battle was more like Moltres 1 against 3 than Moltres plus Zapdos teaming up against Alakazam and Giragla. However, as the trainer of Moltres and Zapdos, Zahu did not issue any instructions from beginning to end. Not to mention that Liuli and others were strange. Even Kona could not figure out Zahu's plan. It was not until Moltres was in danger that Zahu suddenly said, "Moltres, is this your limit?" Moltres was stunned and looked at Zahu in astonishment, as if he did not understand Zahu's thoughts. These days, Zapdos still did not accept Zahu a little, and it had begun to regard Zahu as its friend and trainer. Molten, this is not your limit, right? Remember the battle on Asia Island? The attack power of the fire god is very strong, but it is molten, and so are you. I believe you are no worse than it. Show your strength to everyone. You are the strongest molten bird. Can Alakazam's illusion really restrict you? Zahu said with a firm look. Molten Bird heard Zahu's words and recalled the scene of being beaten by the fire god on Asia Island. A sense of unwillingness and a desire for powerful strength rose in her heart. The wings that had been restricted by Alakazam's illusion actually moved slightly. Superpowers are what Zahu least wants to face, because superpowers are invisible and intangible, and basically cannot be avoided. Once restricted, they cannot move, and can only be slaughtered by others, which is much more difficult than fire attacks. In reality, superpowers are even more varied. For example, the superpower Queen Nancy is even more outrageous, directly turning living people into rag dolls. Like Shinji, when he swept through all the gyms, he knew that Reiji had been beaten by Nancy at the Golden Gym, and turned into a rag doll, so he deliberately subdued a dark attribute Murkrow, thinking that the psychic attribute was ineffective against the dark attribute, and wanted to beat Nancy. As a result, Murkrow was turned into a rag doll by Nancy. The only difference is that other people or Pokémon turned into rag dolls are just rag dolls. Except for being able to talk, they can't move, almost like real dolls. And Murkrow, after being turned into a rag doll, although it can't attack, it can still fly. As a result, Nancy was delighted to see the prey, and played with it for several days, before returning it to Shinji. However, this world still tends to be scientific. The law of energy conservation still exists, and superpowers are bugs. It depends on whether your superpowers are strong enough. And now Moltres has obviously exceeded the limit that Alakazam can limit. Seeing this, Zahu couldn't help but show a trace of joy. Zapdos seemed to have sensed that Moltres' strength was increasing. An energy bullet condensed in its mouth, and it actually attacked directly with an electromagnetic cannon, intending to kill Moltres with one shot. Feeling the strong threat of Zapdos, Moltres was even more anxious. It lost to Articuno, and called Articuno the boss, because Articuno had been trained for a long time and Articuno didn't do anything to it, so it accepted it. But when it thought about calling Zapdos brother in the future, it refused to accept it. The strong refusal to accept it gathered in its heart and finally burst into a powerful flame. Moltres let out a long cry, and a powerful flame burst out of its mouth, directly knocking away the energy bullet of the electromagnetic cannon. Then it flapped its wings, and broke free from the restrictions of Alakazam's illusion technique, and then spewed flames in the air, and then the god bird attacked fiercely. Moltres swooped down, flashing past like lightning, and with one move, Alakazam and Galagara both fell down, and lost their ability to fight. Zapdos was also hit against the wall on the side, and it took a long time to climb out. Chapter 134 Ranking of the Three Divine Birds. After defeating 3 opponents in a row, Moltres was very excited. It happily flew to Zahu, and rubbed Zahu's cheek. Zahu smiled and admitted that he was just gambling. Moltres and Zapdos are different from Pikachu and Charizard. Although Pikachu and Charizard broke up in the later period, when Charizard was still a small dragon, the two were good partners. Moltres and Zapdos are natural enemies since childhood. It is impossible for them to love each other like Charizard and Pikachu, but it is almost impossible in the short term. So, just change it, and let the strong suppress the weak. Just like before, Moltres and Articuno were in harmony. Because Articuno was strong, Moltres knew that it could not beat it. In this case, use this crisis to stimulate Moltres' potential. Survive in the face of death. Huge pressure is the easiest to stimulate potential, whether it is a person or a Pokémon, but this kind of thing is too risky, either reborn or directly crushed. So when it was 3 against 1, Zahu did not prohibit Zapdos' behavior. On the one hand, he knew that Zapdos would not listen to him in this situation, and on the other hand, he was just taking a gamble. He believed that Moltres' strength could definitely reach a higher level. Of course, it was a gamble, so there was a possibility of losing. But if you lose, you can just start over. The Alliance Gym can get many unimaginable benefits and privileges from the Alliance, and the corresponding is the pay of the Alliance Gym. For example, you cannot refuse the challenge of the trainer, even if it is the second or third challenge. So the price to pay for challenging the gym is really small. Even if you fail, it's nothing. Are you using my Pokémon to hone your Pokémon strength? You are worthy of being a trainer with a legendary beast. But challenger, although you won this game, the tacit understanding between the two Pokémon is not almost zero, but negative. As a companion traveling together, this is a big problem. Liuli first affirmed Zahu's strength, and then put forward her own opinions pertinently. Thank you. I will try to improve their tacit understanding in the future. Zahu knew that Liula's opinion was for his own good, so he accepted it with an open mind. He thought to himself that after this, Zapdos should behave himself. This is the Liuli badge, the proof of defeating me. After you get it, you can challenge the chief trainer of the Orange League. Liuli took out a badge and said, "Thank you. If Aunt Liuli is free, you can also watch the broadcast. This year, there will be a few more people in the hall of the Orange League Winners' Cup." Zahu took it with a smile. Liuli nodded, and she was also looking forward to it. She also wanted to watch the duel between the legendary beast and the Dragonite. Zahu took the gym badge, and went to the Pokémon Center with Kona to treat Moltres and Zapdos respectively. It was not until the evening that the injuries of the two Pokémon were completely healed. Zapdos' injury was not bad, but Moltres' injury was really serious. The two Pokémon were released by Zahu. At first, they were a little confused. They didn't know what Zahu wanted them to do. But when they saw each other, they immediately became jealous of each other. They burned with flames and lightning respectively, and wanted to fight. However, after what happened in the morning, Moltres was much stronger than Zapdos. Zapdos didn't dare to act rashly, and Moltres was embarrassed to act directly because of Zahu. No need to stare at each other, just start fighting. I won't participate. Remember who wins is second. Don't act wild again in the future. Zahu said calmly. Moltres heard the words, and his eyes suddenly lit up. He took the lead in launching an attack, burning with flames all over his body, and then attacked with flames and divine birds. Zahu smiled when he saw this. He referred to the principle of Zyos's return punch protective shield, and invented the air dance specifically for flying Pokémon. According to the different attributes of each Pokémon, it was subtly modified. Togeus's became a pirouette dance, Articuno's became an ice dance, and Moltres became a fire dance. But these uses are actually just simple uses of their basic tricks, just like Moltres' fire dance is a simple protection of spraying flames. During the battle in the Orange Islands, Moltres had already added the Divine Bad to the flame spraying skills. The two skills together were terrifyingly powerful. This was also the confidence that Zahu had in Gambled. That was why he had defeated two at once and seriously injured Zapdos. Now it seems that Moltres has completely mastered this fusion skill. Zapdos was flashing with lightning and also responded with a violent temper, but unlike the previous evenly matched opponents, this time Moltres had completely suppressed it. In the end, Zapdos fell to the ground in embarrassment, while Moltres flew freely in the sky, excitedly spraying flames, venting the glory of the winner. Zahu did not look at the victorious Moltres, but first walked towards the defeated Zapdos on the ground, bent down and said, "How about becoming stronger with me?" Zapdos looked up at Zahu, their eyes met, and then quickly nodded to indicate his agreement. Zahu smiled slightly. From this moment on, Zapdos was truly his Pokémon, and until now, he was truly a trainer of the three divine birds. When dealing with adult Pokémon and legendary Pokémon, the attitude should be different from that of ordinary young Pokémon. You should teach them in accordance with their aptitude. For young Pokémon, like the Vulpix, that you first met, you only need to show care and love, so that it will feel reliable and follow you. You must be gentle. For ordinary Pokémon, you can usually conquer them by defeating them and putting them in a Pokéball. Finally, for powerful Pokémon, it is not enough to simply love them and put them in a Pokéball. Especially legendary Pokémon, you must make them obey you. For example, Moltres really obeyed Zahu because Articuno defeated the wild Moltres under Zahu's command. Although this method of showing strength is a bit cruel, it is difficult to achieve complete obedience without doing so. At this time, Moltres in the sky also ended its excitement and swooped down towards Zahu, shouting excitedly. Zahu initially thought that Moltres was expressing his joy of victory, but after listening more, he realized that Moltres was going to duel with Articuno for the position of the boss. The smug expression on Zahu's face froze instantly. "You three, you are not done yet, right? After fighting here, I will fight there. I want to change my career to be an old uncle." However, looking at the challenging Moltres, Zahu still reluctantly released Articuno, and then said to the three mythical birds including Zapdos, "After today's fight, the next one will be in half a year. You three will fight, and then decide the ranking order. In this half year, even if one of you suddenly improves in strength, you can't challenge again, otherwise don't blame me for helping." Articuno was the first to nod, indicating that he supported Zahu's leadership and would not waver for 100 years. Moltres was also tamed very thoroughly, and at the same time, said that he would definitely win this time. It didn't matter. The last Zapdos, who had just been beaten and lost his way, said at this time that he couldn't beat the other two in half a year, so you just have to be happy. Finally, Articuno and Moltres rose to the sky at the same time to compete for the position of the boss. First, they looked at each other and then released flames and cold currents to show their friendship. Unlike Zapdos, who had a bad temper, and later, these two were not only old acquaintances, but also traveled together for a period of time, so their relationship was slightly better. After testing each other's strength, the two birds decisively started fighting. They were good at fighting and didn't talk too much. Zahu stood below and watched the battle between the two Pokémon. Although they were both his Pokémon, to be honest, he had a better relationship with Articuno, so he also hoped that Articuno would win. However, the current Moltres' strength was indeed improving a little too fast. Although Articuno was the strongest at the beginning, and even directly controlled ice and snow, and entered the realm of bond with Zahu, it did not receive the treasure inheritance of the ice island, so it was not necessarily able to suppress the current Moltres. However, being a trainer should be fair. Therefore, he could only watch the two Pokémon fight from night to day, and then both fell down due to exhaustion. However, Articuno lay down a few seconds later than Moltres, so the final ranking was still Articuno, Moltres, and Zapdos. Then, Zahu and Kona went to the last challenge location of the Orange Islands, but did not take the Dragonite again, but chose to take a boat. Zahu and Kona made up for yesterday's sleep in the room. This also resulted in them arriving a little later than expected, and the battle between Shinji and Yuji had reached its final stage. Chapter 135 Everyone's Growth. The Orange Islands, the venue for the finals of the Victor's Cup, is not as big as a venue for the Quartz Conference, but it is not much smaller, especially the spectators around. There are almost the same number of people. Zahu spent a lot of effort to find Zyozzy and Zyomeo, and went over with Kona to ask, "You two have finished the game, how is the result?" "Of course we both won, brother, I was the first to win," Zyozzy said proudly. "Isn't it because brother Zahu decided to let you go first in the competition schedule? If I go first, I will also win," Zyomeo said unconvinced. "Okay, don't argue for now, you two have been arguing since you were young. You are not tired of it, but I am. Tell me how you two got through it," Zahu said. "I used Pikachu, Riolu, Dragonite, Charizard, Squirtle, and Bulbasaur. But this trainer's Dragonite is really powerful, even Charizard lost, and in the end it was Pikachu who used his tail to jump on Dragonite's head, so I won," Zyozzy said. "So Zyozzy's victory was all due to luck," Zyomeo said. "Zyomeo, you also relied on luck, didn't you? If Dragonite hadn't fallen a little faster than your Blastoise, you would have lost last time," Zyozzy retorted. "This is my strategy. You can win because of Pikachu. It has nothing to do with you," Zyomeo retorted unyieldingly. After watching the battle between Zyozzy and Yuji and thoroughly understanding Yuji's Pokémon Lineage and strength, he sent out Blastoise, Nidoking, Windy Dog, Rhyton, Mantis, and Alakazam, 6 Pokémon specifically targeting Yuji, except for Mantis and Ditto, which were exchanged 1 for 1. Blastoise beat Onix, Windy Dog killed Venusaur in seconds, and although Alakazam and Rhyton didn't kill instantly, they easily defeated Jengar and Electabuzz. So Zyomeo only lost 1 to defeat Yuji's 6th Dragonite. At that time, the audience and the entire venue were stunned, and they almost suspected that Yuji had not recovered from the previous battle with Zyozzy. Zyomeo was full of energy and thought that Yuji was just so-so. In addition, he had Nidoking learn the Freeze Beam in advance, which made him more confident, and planned to fight to 6-0. As a result, Zyomeo's Nidoking only used the Freeze Beam once, and was defeated by Dragonite with Water Column Tail. The next battle was a reversal of the previous one. Dragonite defeated Mantis with a Fire Spray in seconds, and defeated Rhyton with a Water Gun. Fortunately, the failure of the two made Zyomeo sober up from his arrogance. He played steadily, and made plans to sacrifice 2 more Pokémon. He first commanded Alakazam to use the 2 skills of Instant Teleport and Self-Regeneration to try to consume Dragonite's physical strength. Although it was finally cleared, Dragonite was also exhausted. Then he used Arcanine, who could use Dragon's Fury, to attack, so in the end, Blastoise faced only a Dragonite with only about 60% of its physical strength left. Finally, he used Freeze Beam to win. Although during the game, Dragonite's 100,000 volts also injured Blastoise, and it almost fell down first. But Zyomeo felt that his tactics were completely correct, and he was not like Zyozzy who was just messing around. If Pikachu had not reacted to Dragonite's last destruction ray, used its tail as a spring, and jumped up without Zyozzy's order, and defeated Dragonite with 100,000 volts, then the winner would be Yuji. Looking at the two guys who started quarreling again while chatting, Zahu shook his head, too lazy to stop the two guys, who would not fight anyway, but began to patiently observe Shinji's game. In the current game situation, Yuji only had 1 Dragonite left, while Shinji had 1 Tortoise and a Pokémon that he had not used. Zahu was not looking forward to this game, because Shinji was not Zyozzy, and did not have enough experience in fighting against attributes. Sure enough, not long after, Shinji's tortoise was defeated, but it was not defeated by Dragonite's flying trick, but was hit by the fourfold restraint of the freezing ray and lost its combat ability. Seeing this, Zahu couldn't help but admire. Although reality is not a game, Pokémon can use more than 4 special moves. Once you learn a special move, you will never forget it. However, Pokémon's energy is limited. Learning so many special moves will affect its power. But this Dragonite has used more than 2-digit special moves. Shinji, come on. Zahu said. Well, brother Zahu, you are finally here. I was afraid that you couldn't catch up. Now watch how I win. Shinji said confidently. Seeing you win, you are really confident, but this Dragonite is not simple. Huh. Zahu was halfway through his words when he suddenly found that Dragonite looked painful. It looked like it was attacked, even though it was not attacked. He looked at Shinji's Pokémon displayed on the big screen, and found that there was indeed a Dragonite. He smiled and said, "You poisoned this Dragonite, right? Dragonite has dual attributes of poison and evil. Among them, the poison attribute can use as many routines as the ghost type. Once poisoned, physical strength will be consumed little by little over time. Dragonite is now at the end of its strength. Yes, I have to speed up to catch up with my brother and you, Zahu. Of course, I have to work harder. Zahu, next, I will show you my growth. Electabuzz, come on stage." Shinji smiled confidently and threw a black and yellow Pokémon from his pocket. Electabuzz, has Shinji's growth reached this point? Zahu's face showed a hint of surprise. Although he did not watch the whole battle, when he saw this, he had more or less guessed Shinji's fighting style. First use a Pokémon to defeat Ditto, then send Dragonite to use poison spikes. The rest of Yuji's Pokémon were not strong to begin with, and they were probably destroyed without much fighting after being weakened. Then let Dragonite appear to poison Dragonite, and then there was no rush to defeat this Dragonite, but let the other Pokémon consume Dragonite's physical strength one after another. If Zahu guessed correctly, Shinji let Electabuzz appear last, which must be to let Electabuzz learn Freeze Punch. Sure enough, at the beginning of the game, Shinji commanded the Electric Beast to kill Dragonite with the Freezing Punch in seconds, winning the Victor's Cup battle. Xiaozi and Xiaomeo felt a sense of urgency when they saw this scene. They had tried their best and almost failed, but although Shinji also used 6 of them, he won easily. Although they did not admit that they were not Shinji's opponents now, if the challenge situation of the Orange League Victor's Cup was used as an exam, it was obvious that Shinji's results were the best. In fact, it was not just the 2 of them, even Zahu felt some pressure. The growth of the 3 Shinjis was much faster than he thought. If he did not further improve his strength, he would not be able to play with his younger brother in the future. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 136, The Victory Cup opens. The Research Institute falls from the sky. This is the Citrus Stadium. We are welcoming the arrival of new challengers. The atmosphere of enthusiasm and excitement in the stadium has completely spread. Not long ago, 3 trainers have successfully defeated Yuji. Can this trainer also do it? Please let us wait and see. Zahu and Yuji passed each other and walked to their respective places. As soon as they stood still, Zahu heard the cheers of the crowd behind Yuji. Hundreds of people in the stadium cheered enthusiastically. Zahu was shocked by the earth-shaking momentum and thought to himself, this kind of thing doesn't happen in animation. Could it be that he lost to 3 people in a row, so the audience couldn't stand it? But in this situation, it's really not suitable to fight. Zahu's thoughts just flashed through the sky, and a black shadow flashed in the sky, followed by the 4 words "Come on." Zahu infinitely amplified by the loudspeaker, instantly overwhelming the voices cheering for Yuji, filling the entire stadium. Zahu was stunned, looked up at the floating object in the sky, and was surprised again. Isn't that UFO in the sky his own research institute? It was just that for some reason, the entire institute was equipped with spiral aircraft similar to the pyramids used by the KNIO, making the entire institute fly. What is this? Aliens? UFOs? No, this is a mobile sky fortress. All the audience members below the stage were talking about it, and they were curious about the institute that suddenly appeared. Then a voice resounded throughout the venue. Since you are asking sincerely, then let me tell you, our name, the righteous messenger who rides on the clouds, is heroic and fights back against the miserable world, Kajiro. The righteous star who shares life and death, joys and sorrows, and has a golden light on his head for his partners. Meow meow meow. On the balcony, Kajiro and Meow Meow posed in cool shapes, as if they were shining with brilliance. The audience below the stage was surprised and stunned at first, and then cheered continuously. Is this a new celebrity? I don't know, but it looks so cool. That Meow can talk. Is it a professional actor? Never mind. Tell me when it's on. I'll go buy a ticket. Zahu's expression froze. If he remembered correctly, he was the protagonist today. Why? Someone gave himself so many extra scenes. I don't know. Isn't adding scenes the most hated thing in the entertainment industry these days? It's just throwing you in the research institute for a few months without playing with you. Really? Come on, Zahu. Just when Zahu was full of complaints, Hanako, who came with him, cheered for Zahu excitedly, which made Zahu regain some feeling. Then he looked at Yuji on the opposite side and said, send out the Pokémon. Pretend these sounds don't exist, and immerse yourself in the battle seriously. Yes, this is the meaning of Pokémon battles. When you are in the battle, you forget everything. Challenger, I hope your strength is stronger than the previous 3. Next, it's my first Pokémon, Ditto. Yuji said. Ditto, is this really the Pokémon? Can it transform into the opponent's Pokémon freely? Then, Ryalu, go out and play. Zahu threw Ryalu and said. Ditto, transform. Yangtze said. Ditto's body shape changed, and its body genes were reorganized. In an instant, it became Ryalu. If you didn't see it with your own eyes, most people would not believe that this Pokémon was not Ryalu. Ryalu, use wave missiles. Zahu said. Ditto, we also use wave missiles. Yangtze said. The 2 Pokémon on the field used the same trick at the same time. The 2 wave missiles collided in one place, raising a large amount of dust. Ryalu, ignore the dust, just rush in, and use tile splitting. Ryalu's eyes lit up, and then rushed in without thinking. Ditto, let's rush in too. Ditto rushed quickly, and then the sound of fighting came from inside, and then a Ryalu flew out directly, and hit the rock wall on the side. The audience around looked curious, wondering which Pokémon it was. Zahu said confidently, Ryalu, seize the opportunity to attack, and break the tiles. In the smoke and dust, a nimble Ryalu ran out quickly, and punched another Ryalu on the rock. The beaten Ryalu lost its ability to fight, and turned into a Ditto. Ditto, lose its ability to fight. The referee ruled. How is it possible? Everyone used the same trick. Why did my Ditto fail in the end? Yangtze said with a puzzled look. You know, before meeting Xiles he and his friends, he used a Ditto to beat several trainers and 6 Pokémon. Many trainers felt like they were fighting against themselves when they met his Ditto. His Ditto is like a mirror that can reflect the level of a trainer. But why didn't it work for Zahu? The first 3 had to go through a hard fight and even exchanged 1-for-1. There are many reasons. The first one is that you really don't know how to use Ditto. Do you think that, if you hold a Ditto, use the same special moves as your opponent, and then let everyone fight against you, you can use Ditto? Wrong, this is just a mirror, or a counterfeit pirated version. As long as you can recognize that Ditto is Ditto and your own Pokémon is your own Pokémon, you can win. Zahu shook his head. Ditto is ever changing. In a common sense, if you own this Pokémon, you own all Pokémon. However, this requires a trainer to have the corresponding knowledge, and you obviously don't have it. So basically you use the special moves I use, and you can't use Ditto's maximum power at all. The second, and also very critical point, is that you have to know that you are not facing an ordinary Pokémon, but a fighting type Pokémon. Fighting type Pokémon are also a special kind of Pokémon. Even if they don't use any special moves, they are equivalent to human boxers. So their fighting is not just a competition of special moves, but also close combat skills. These skills are not very sophisticated. Basically, a qualified Pokémon trainer will let his fighting Pokémon cultivate this quality, but yours is Ditto. So using the same special moves, it will be your Ditto that fails. If you can't make good use of your Ditto, it's better not to train it, because it will only bully weak ones. Zahu looked at Yuji calmly, commenting on him without reservation, even giving him instructions with the attitude of a senior. It was as if the chief trainer representing the highest combat power of the Orange Islands was not Yuji, but him. Chapter 137 Finals begins. I see. Yangtze nodded suddenly. In the Orange Islands, he had been seeking to defeat the enemy alone for these years. His strength had grown slowly, and his knowledge was inevitably limited. In that case, I will send it next. Jenga. Yangtze threw a Pokeball and said, Jenga, the final evolution of Ghastly, wants to use the ghost type to be immune to the fighting type. Then, Railu, use see-through. Zahu said. Railu's eyes glowed, and he swept across the field majestically, and then locked onto Jenga. Ghost-type Pokémon were rated by Zahu as the most disgusting type of Pokémon in combat. They have many routines and high evasion. Especially the invisibility ability of Ghastly, which is really like a ghost. If the attack is not done properly, ordinary Pokémon will probably be killed alive. Therefore, Zahu did not hesitate to use see-through first, so that the ghost-type Pokémon could not be invisible, and at the same time, the moves that had no effect on ghost attribute Pokémon would cause damage after being used. Yangtze's face tightened slightly. He didn't expect Zahu to react so quickly. However, he was the chief trainer after all. Especially after experiencing 3 failures, he had grown more. He said calmly, Genji UI, strange light. The strange light flashed between Jenga's hands and hit Railu directly, causing Railu to fall into a state of confusion. Come back, Railu. Railu fell into confusion. Yangtze was about to take advantage of the victory to pursue, but Zahu took Railu back first, making his plan fall through. Next, Onix come out. Zahu threw out Onix and said, with Railu's current state, it is almost impossible to break free from the confusion in a short time. If it takes too long, it will most likely be beaten by Jenga and lose its combat ability. It is better to take it back directly. What kind of Onix is this? Shiny? Seeing Zahu taking back Railu, Yangtze was helpless and had no choice. After all, it was in accordance with the rules. However, when he saw Zahu's crystal Onix, he couldn't help but be shocked. If it weren't for the League inspection, he would have suspected that Zahu had painted something on the surface of Onix. It's not a flash. As for what's special, you'll know when you really hit it, Zahu said with a smile. Okay, in that case, Jenga, use the strange light again. Yangtze said. Dig a hole. Zahu's order came first. Onix burrowed into the ground at lightning speed. Jenga's strange light hit the ground, but it had no effect at all. Looking at the ground with only a hole left, Jenga couldn't help but be confused. He looked left and right. Seeing this, Yangtze immediately comforted him. Jenga, don't panic. It will come out sooner or later. Pay attention to your left and right. Jenga calmed down immediately after hearing this and looked around. After evolving into Jenga, it lost the floating ability that Ghastly and Haunter had, so it had to be more careful. But whether it was Jenga or Yangtze, when they were on guard, they subconsciously ignored the small pool behind Jenga. Rock-type Pokémon are afraid of water. This is common sense. However, common sense can sometimes make mistakes, such as now. Zahu smiled sinisterly and said, Onix, you Scientale. As soon as he finished speaking, Onix suddenly jumped out of the pool on the side, and then its tail shone brightly, and it whipped Jenga fiercely and powerfully. Jenga was caught off guard and was hit. He fell heavily to the ground, and lost his ability to fight. Zahu was stunned, and thought that this level was a bit low, just an ordinary level, a little better than a novice Pokémon, and far from the elite. No wonder in the animation, it fought with Zyos his Dragonite, which was almost untrained, and was still in its infancy, and both died in one move. Jenga lost its ability to fight, but Yuji did not take Jenga back immediately. Instead, he looked at Zahu's crystal Onix with a surprised face and said, is your Pokémon still Onix? Why is it not afraid of water? Just treat it as a special regional form Pokémon. Zahu smiled. What exactly is the attribute of crystal Onix? Even he, a doctor, has not yet studied it in detail, so it is difficult to explain. Without getting an answer from Zahu, Yangtze frowned even more. Although he had lost the previous 3 games, He felt that the opponent he faced this time was really more terrifying. After hesitating for a while, he threw out Bulbasaur and said, "Since you are not afraid of water, let me see if you are afraid of grass." "Bulbasaur, use Sunblaze," Yangtze said. The Bulbasaur on the field showed a fierce expression, and the huge flower on its back accumulated light, preparing to launch the second round. Zahu didn't care. The level of this Bulbasaur was just ordinary, and it was not even elite. Compared with the Onix of the old Manu Kang in the Battle Palace, it was simply a world of difference. He said directly, "Onix, use Stealth Rock." Onix's body shook, and many crystal rocks suddenly appeared on the field. Stealth Rock is a trick that can hurt the Pokémon that takes turns to play. Originally, Zahu planned to let Onix play first, but because the first Pokémon on the opposite side was Ditto, he didn't dare to use it to avoid mutual injury. Yangtze frowned, as if he had not expected Zahu to use this trick instead of attacking when Venusaur used Sunflame. However, even so, he still did not dare to take it lightly and ordered, "Vulpes, use the Vine Whip." Venusaur roared, and 7 or 8 Vine Whips stretched out from its body, attacking Onix in an overwhelming manner. "Dig a hole," Zahu said. It must be said that Ziba's evaluation of him was actually quite correct. Although he preferred a violent style of play, and the Snorlax in his hand was also a typical example of domineering and flat out pushing, he usually played dirty tricks, one more than the other. Zahu liked to use poisoning, hypnosis, field moves, flying, digging holes, etc., which were not direct, but very effective moves. "Vulpes, don't let it go, use the Vine Whip to catch it." Zahu made a good calculation, but Yangtze was not a fool to let him use his skills. He directly let Venusaur stretch out the vine weaving to catch Onix's tail, so that it could not drill down. The defense and attack power of Yangtze's Pokémon are not particularly outstanding, but the speed is. Perhaps because he has the fastest Dragonite, Yangtze focuses on training the speed of Pokémon. There are few Pokémon of the same species that can compare, even at the elite level. So it is reasonable that Onix can't escape. "Onix, use Scientail to throw Bulbasaur away for me," Zahu shouted. Since he can't escape, he might as well see how strong it is. The absoluteness of Pokémon is that tactics are one aspect, but the more important thing is always the strength of the Pokémon itself. Although it has not been long since he captured Onix, Zahu is still very confident. Onix will not be afraid of Pokémon below the elite level. After receiving Zahu's order, Onix's tail shone brightly, and it exerted force suddenly, not only breaking free from Bulbasaur's restraints, but also throwing Bulbasaur directly into the air. Bulbasaur was thrown into the sky and couldn't help but lose consciousness for a while. This feeling of weightless flying is extremely rare for a land Pokémon like it, and it was directly dizzy. "Bulbasaur, don't be stunned, use Sunblaze." Yuji seized the opportunity and said. Bulbasaur in the sky reacted immediately. The flower that had already absorbed the sunlight immediately burst out with a powerful attack, accurately hitting Onix on the ground, and then Onix lost its ability to fight. "It seems that your strength also needs to grow, just like Onix." Yuji smiled. He was scolded by Zahu before. Although what Zahu said was true, as the chief trainer of the Orange Islands, he also has dignity. Naturally, he was a little dissatisfied in his heart. Now that he has a chance, he naturally has to say it back. Especially when he found that Zahu's 2 Pokémon didn't seem to be particularly powerful. Zahu showed an awkward smile on his face, not because of Yuji's words, but because he found that he had been too idle during this period. Because he didn't take the Orange League seriously at all. He was traveling, and basically didn't train Pokémon. Even if he trained, Riolu was first, Dratini was second, and Haunter was third. Onix was only fourth. The talent of Crystal Onix was just average, so it was natural for it to be defeated. However, it was a bit miserable to be beaten in the face after just teaching it a lesson, especially in front of Kona and his younger brothers. Thinking of this, Zahu suddenly didn't want to play anymore, and threw out Haunter. "I'm going to show my cards now." Chapter 138. I'm showing my cards. As for Haunter, it only has a second stage evolutionary form, and there is no third form. Seeing this, Yuji couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Before, seeing Zahu's Railu easily defeat his Ditto, he couldn't help but respect Zahu very much, but the failure of Onyx made him realize that Zahu didn't seem to be that strong. The first Railu was in its initial form, the second Onyx was in its initial form, and now the third Haunter is in its second form. In this case, he may not be his opponent. Vulpes, use the Vine Whip. Yuji shouted. Haunter, Freeze Beam. Zahu said. After hearing this, Haunter immediately floated and moved, calmly dodging the Vine Whip of Venusaur, and then used a Freeze Beam to hit Venusaur and lose its combat ability. The next order that Yuji prepared could only be aborted, and because he had already lost 3 Pokémon, he had to change the venue and convert the rock venue into a sand venue. Zahu didn't care at all. He could adapt to any kind of venue. He just looked at Yuji seriously. Now he was no longer playing with the mentality of beating his younger brother, but fighting seriously. Only in this state, he was the most terrifying. Under Zahu's gaze, Yuji also felt a sense of pressure for no reason, and threw out a big Onyx. Because of the durability of the invisible rock, it suffered a wave of attacks as soon as it appeared. However, because Big Onyx has the ground attribute, the damage it received was relatively light. Big Onyx. Haunter is back. Golduck is on the field. Zahu also quickly replaced the Pokémon. Since he didn't plan to play anymore, he naturally had to be as fast as the autumn wind sweeping the fallen leaves. Golduck. It was the first time that Golduck was sent out by Zahu to participate in such a large-scale battle. At first, he was a little surprised, but then he saw the cheers of the audience around him, and there were many little girls in the audience. A feeling of being the center of attention rose up, and he immediately jumped up excitedly and gave a thumbs up to the surroundings. Zahu remained calm, as if he hadn't seen it, and said directly, "Water Cannon." Although Golduck was showing off and coquettish, it was still very reliable at this time. It obeyed Zahu's instructions and sprayed a thick stream of water from its mouth. Onyx, dig a hole. Yangtze ordered urgently. Onyx quickly dug a hole and drilled into the ground at the first time. It actually dodged perfectly. In terms of digging speed, it was a little faster than Zahu's. Use water cannon at the entrance of the cave. Zahu said calmly. Do you think you will be fine if you hide underground? Don't think too much. After hearing this, Golduck's eyes lit up, and he immediately ran to the entrance of the cave, and then sprayed a more powerful water cannon. This was his first show. In front of so many beauties, he must not lose the duck. The powerful water cannon was violently injected into the entrance of the cave. Not long after, the ground trembled, but it was Yangtze's Onyx that couldn't bear it, and drilled out directly, but his eyes had become circles, and he had completely lost his ability to fight. Golduck became excited again, posing in a coquettish bodybuilding pose. Even though he was fully focused on the battle at the moment, seeing Siddiq like this, Zahu couldn't help but shook his head and said to Yangtze, "Next, come again." Yangtze had no choice but to take back Onyx, and then released the attribute Restrained Electabuzz. As soon as Electabuzz appeared on the field, it was attacked by Invisible Rock and immediately showed a painful expression. Rock restrains electricity. Electabuzz, bear it. Now use Thunder Palm on Golduck. Yangtze said. Electabuzz showed a resolute expression, endured the damage, and his hands were shining, and he attacked Golduck fiercely. Golduck, telekinesis. Zahu did not take back Golduck, but continued to command. Among Yangtze's Pokémon, except Dragonite, there is no one that can threaten Golduck. Gotha Golduck's eyes glowed blue, and he pointed at Electabuzz with domineering power. Electabuzz floated uncontrollably in the air. Then Golduck swung his hand vigorously and slammed Electabuzz heavily to the ground, knocking it unconscious. Destruction Ray. A light flashed between Golduck's eyebrows, and then a yellow beam of light burst out, hitting Electabuzz immediately, stirring up a large amount of dust. When the dust cleared, Electabuzz had turned into a circle-shaped eye, lying there listlessly. Yuji looked at Zahu in disbelief. His confidence, which had just swelled up, fell back at this moment. In the 3 previous battles, Zyozzy and his 3 companions also fought with 6 Pokémon together, unlike Zahu, who only used 4 in total. And the remaining 2 will only be stronger. Okay, let me see your Dragonite. Didn't you say that the match with you started with Dragonite? Zahu urged calmly. Yangtze blankly touched the Pokeball hanging around his neck. Somehow, he felt that Zehu was like a demon king, as if he was going to harvest him. This attitude was clearly the way he treated those challengers in the past. But when his hand touched the Dragonite Pokeball, Yangtze suddenly made up his mind and threw out the Dragonite, saying, "Zehu, I admit that you are strong, but my Dragonite is stronger. The match between you and me really only counts from this game onwards." Looking directly at Zehu, after Dragonite appeared, Yangtze became very confident, not at all depressed, after being beaten before. And Yangtze's Dragonite did not disappoint Yangtze's trust. Even though it was affected by the invisible rock, it still burst out with amazing momentum when it appeared on the field, and even caused the audience around to scream. Even though Yangtze lost 3 games in a row, the power of Dragonite was still deeply rooted in people's hearts, and no one would question Yangtze's Dragonite. Even Zehu was the same. Although his expression was silly, those who didn't know would think that this guy was the same slow Pokemon as slow Pokemon, but those who knew would never dare to underestimate this Kanto quasi-god. Zehu observed with a professional eye, and the more he observed, the more cautious he became. The strength of this Dragonite was higher than he had imagined, and it was about to break through the boundary of the quasi-king and reach the king level. Among the Pokémon he currently had, apart from the 3 mythical birds and Jigglypuff, only Ninetales could surely defeat it. Among the rest, only Golduck had a fighting chance, and none of the others could beat it. Golduck, come back, let Ninetales come to harvest. Zehu, who was determined to solve the problem quickly, was already planning to send out his trump card. Golduck, I don't want to go back, I can beat this big fool, don't stop me from showing off. Golduck shook his head vigorously, looking at Zehu to show that he wanted to show off. Don't stop him. Sure, if you lose, I won't show you beauties. Zehu said. Golduck, I won't lose in front of so many beauties. Golduck said confidently. Then, just go all out, Zehu said with a smile. Although Ninetales was faster, since his Pokémon wanted to fight, he certainly wouldn't refuse, especially when Golduck wouldn't necessarily lose to Dragonite. Dragonite, move at high speed. Yuji gave his first order at this time. At this moment, he was filled with extraordinary momentum. Dragonite was the source of his confidence. He almost abandoned the training of the other 5 to focus on one Dragonite. Dragonite's figure changed, and its already extremely fast speed increased again. Before Golduck could react, it came in front of it first, and then spurted out a dragon's fury. Golduck was startled, and quickly used telekinesis to form a barrier in front of it, but it was still knocked several meters away by Dragonite before it stopped. The casual expression on its face turned into a serious expression. This guy's different. Dragonite, let them see our power. 100,000 volts. Yuji said in high spirits. During this period, he lost 3 battles and was defeated by Xiaozi, Xiaomao, and Xingji. His confidence as the chief trainer of the Orange Islands was almost destroyed. However, as an excellent trainer, he was even nominated as the candidate for the next king. His psychological quality is undoubtedly excellent. After a short period of depression, he stood up again. Therefore, 3 consecutive failures did not defeat him, but made him and his Dragonite go one step further. And now, he suddenly had a hunch that perhaps defeating Zehu could make his Dragonite reach the level of the king. The tentacles on Dragonite trembled and burst out a strong electric current. Although it was not an electric Pokémon, it was not necessarily that ordinary electric Pokémon could emit such a powerful electric current. Zehu's expression became more and more serious. As expected of Dragonite, who could use more than a dozen tricks in a row in the animation, he calmly ordered, go for duck, dodge, and then use freezing ray on Dragonite. Hearing this, Golduck jumped flexibly and easily dodged Dragonite's attack, and then shot a freezing ray at it. Zehu's Pokémon has ice type attacks as standard, and Dragonite happens to have 4 times the counter. Chapter 139, because the world outside is vast. Dragonite dives, then 100,000 volts. Yuji gave the order decisively. Dragonite flew across the field at a speed so fast that it almost appeared like a phantom, and calmly dodged Golduck's freezing beam attack. Lightning flashed above its head, and powerful lightning spread across the field. Golduck had no choice but to stop attacking and dodge first. Fortunately, it was amazingly agile, so it was not that dangerous. But Zahu couldn't help but frown. Dragonite's speed race value in the game was only 80. Not only not fast, but also slow. But God knows why. This guy's flying speed is the first among Pokémon in reality. It is extremely difficult for Golduck to attack it at high speed. Fortunately, in order to see the beauty, Golduck relied on its own strength to swim between several islands all day long, maintaining sufficient physical strength and agility. Otherwise it would have been sanctioned by now. Frowning in thought, Zahu's eyes suddenly lit up, and he said with a smile, "Gotha Duck, use pray for rain." Gotha Duck was slightly stunned, not knowing what to do with this trick, but he still followed Zahu's command, and used this trick without thinking. At that moment, the sky began to be covered with dark clouds and heavy rain fell. Dragonite flapped its wings, not feeling any discomfort, but a little happy. Although it did not have the water attribute, Dragonite was also a good swimmer. Before it evolved, Dratini and Haxorus could even live directly underwater. Gotha Duck, use freeze ray on the rain, Zahu said. Gotha Duck's eyes lit up. It was very smart and understood Zahu's idea. A large piece of ice light sprayed out of its mouth. The rain in the sky met the freeze ray and directly froze into ice cubes of different sizes, which hit Dragonite hard. Dragonite was injured and immediately screamed in pain. It quickly flapped its wings and accelerated its flight, trying to escape the encirclement of the ice cubes. However, the field was full of rain at the moment. Even if Dragonite was fast, it couldn't escape unless it left the field. But in that case, it would be declared the loser. Dragonite, there is water all around now. Hurry up and use 100,000 volts. Yangtze shouted. Dragonite heard this and quickly injured the damage. A strong electric current burst out from its head, spreading along the rain around it and spreading throughout the field. It was overbearing and powerful. Gotha Duck, use telekinesis to protect, Zahu said with a slightly bright look in his eyes. In rainy weather, the speed of the electric current will become faster. Although 100,000 volts will not hit like thunder, the hit rate is greatly improved. It is impossible to escape, so it is better to resist head-on. Golduck's eyes glowed blue, and the powerful telekinesis burst out directly, but it did not attack. Instead, it spread all over its body, as if it had a layer of protection. It was unscathed in the powerful current of 100,000 volts. At this moment, its eyes were resolute and fierce, and it had completely lost its flirtatious look just now, as if it was a majestic general. The female audiences around couldn't help but exclaimed for it. Even Kona was stunned. She had never expected that the Golduck, who usually played tricks all day, could be so serious. Especially the telekinesis on him, which had surpassed her hippopotamus. You should know that hippopotamus has dual attributes. In addition to the water attribute, it also has the psychic attribute, so it is normal for the psychic attribute to be strong. But this Golduck is a pure water attribute. Where do you get such a strong superpower? It is really a psychic Pokémon in the skin of a water Pokémon. Almost, Golduck, freeze beam, Zahu said. Golduck seemed to feel that it had been pretentious enough this time, and it was almost over. Looking up at the Dragonite that was constantly hit by ice cubes, a strong ice ball condensed in its mouth, and then an ice column sprayed, perfectly hitting the Dragonite and knocking it to the ground. Send it another destruction death beam, Zahu said. For an ordinary Dragonite, this freeze beam is enough, but the Dragonite that UG cultivated by wasting 5 Pokémon is obviously not an ordinary Dragonite, so necessary finishing blows are needed. Golduck pointed 3 fingers at his forehead, and a strong energy condensed out, then attacked Dragonite. Yangtze was anxious to let Dragonite dodge, but the frozen Dragonite was obviously unable to complete his order. After finally breaking free from the ice, he was hit by a destruction ray and was blasted out of the field, completely losing his ability to fight. Dragonite has lost its ability to fight, and the winner is Zahu. The referee looked at Dragonite and made a decision. How to say it, he has experienced this kind of thing a little numb. In addition, this is the 4th time, and he has gone from being shocked and surprised to knowing that it will be like this. Yangtze also took back Dragonite a little numbly, looked at Zahu and said, "Your Golduck is really strong. I'm not your opponent." Unlike the previous times, this time, he was really convinced. It has always been his Dragonite that beats several people alone. This is the first time that 3 Pokémon wheels have not taken down a Golduck. He has personality. Zahu smiled, and as soon as he finished speaking, he saw Golduck posing excitedly under the spotlight. For this duck, winning or losing a fight is not important. What is important is to be handsome and to look good. Personality? I remember that in the strength you showed in the Quartz conference, the strongest Linoop was the 6 of Leaf King, Snorlax, Ninetales, Togekiss, Gyarados, Sylph, and the legendary beast Articuno, but this time, you didn't send any of them, and I lost. I originally wanted to see if your Ninetales could restrain my Dragonite. Yuji laughed. If I use the strongest Linoop, Sylph will sweep 3, Snorlax will sweep 2, and the remaining Ninetales or Articuno can directly defeat your Dragonite. In this case, it would be too boring to train Pokémon for battle. We are the trainers of all our Pokémon, not the trainers of one or several Pokémon. Since we are their trainers, we must be prepared to make them stronger. Winning a battle is a pleasure, but training Pokémon to become stronger is even more fun. Zahu laughed. In fact, Zahu disagreed with Yuji's practice of almost abandoning the other 5 Pokémon to focus on Dragonite. To be honest, considering Dragonite's racial value, it is natural to train it to the Qua-seeking level. If you can't train it, you will appear weak, because even a pure wild Dragonite will be elite when it evolves into Dragonite. And making Onix and other Pokémon stronger is a real reflection of the level of the trainer. It's just that they are not familiar with each other, so Zahu can't say much. So I don't even have the qualifications to let you take it seriously. Yangtze smiled bitterly. Zahu heard this and showed a helpless expression. He didn't know how to comfort him. How to say it, although it's not nice, but it is indeed the fact. Forcing some comforting words, Zahu would seem hypocritical. But since you already have such strength, why do you still challenge these alliances? With your strength, no one in Kanto or Johto can stop you from becoming the champion. Yangtze said strangely. Because there is no end to the Tao, there are only stronger trainers in this world, but there is no strongest trainer. Zahu smiled. Yangtze's expression was still a bit puzzled. Even if there are stronger trainers, they will basically not meet at the Alliance conference, right? Zahu couldn't help but smile when he saw this. You know what? The world outside is very vast. Only by going there in person can you know what the scenery outside is like. Only after competing with different masters can your strength be further improved. Not to mention the king. Even the champion is not the end. Not the end? Then are you going to challenge the Silver Conference of the Johto League next? Yuji asked. Yes. Zahu replied. Well, next time we fight in the Johto League, by then, I will not only make Dragonite stronger, but also let the other 5 Pokémon exert enough power. Let me be the barrier to prevent you from winning the Johto League championship. Yuji suddenly said. You? Zahu was surprised at first, then said, you are the chief trainer of the Orange League. Can you travel? My term ends today. I will submit a detailed application in the afternoon. Starting tomorrow, I will go out to travel. Yuji said seriously, then turned and left. Zahu had a strange expression and laughed for a long time. How could he say that? He came to the Orange League to play a game, and he fooled the other party's chief trainer away. Would he be beaten by the people of the Orange League? What are you doing? Next, we have to enter the Hall of Victory and leave your handprints and footprints with the Pokémon for future generations to admire. Kona patted Zahu and said, really? Then let's go. Next, I will go to Johto and the Hall of Victory of each league. I will go there and leave my handprints, which can be regarded as proof that I have been to this world. Zahu smiled. Just based on your achievement of discovering the attributes of the fairy, even if you do nothing and wait for death, your name will be in the history books of future generations. Kona couldn't help laughing. But Zahu didn't know this at this time. He was happily leaving marks with the Pokémon whose names were registered. Although he only sent 4 Pokémon in total, the remaining Dratini and Ninetales were just hitchhiking, but as long as everyone was happy, no one cared. Chapter 140 Kyuubi is pregnant. The night was quiet, the sky was full of stars, the bright stars were beautiful, and a huge monster was flying under the beautiful night view. Needless to say, it was Zahu's research institute. After the Winners' Cup, the journey of the Orange League was over. Maybe because he felt that he had fooled the chief trainer of the league and was no longer willing to work, Zahu felt guilty and ran away that night. When he left, Zahu invited Xiaozi, Shinji and a few others. But the three of them refused in unison. Xiaomao and Shinji's reason was that their journeys were not over yet. Xiaozi's answer was that he had not helped Langan find its tribe, so he could not go back. When Zahu heard this answer, he didn't know what he felt in his heart. Should he praise Xiaozi for really loving Pokémon and taking care of Pokémon psychology, or should he say that he was addicted to releasing Pokémon? If you must let this Langan find a companion, doesn't it mean that you must release Langan? However, Zahu had no right to interfere with Xiaozi's decision. After all, it was good for Langan, so he continued to let them travel slowly, but he was a little worried. He was not worried about Xiaomao and Shinji because they were used to traveling alone. He was worried about Xiaozi because Xiaoji and Xiaozi traveled because they wanted to see Professor Oak. Now that they had met, they went directly to the research institute, and only Xiaoxia was traveling with him. Two children who couldn't cook were together, and Zahu was really worried that they would starve to death on the road. Of course, I had to step into the pit I dug, so Zahu said that he was worried about them starving to death while driving the research institute at a very fast speed. Monini sitting in the driver's seat, Zahu drove the research institute very well. If he couldn't even run a research institute with Kajero and Meowth, he would be really lame. And Monini, who hadn't been seen for a long time, also showed up happily at this time and jumped on Zahu's shoulder. "What? You missed me after not seeing me for so long?" Zahu said with a smile. Although Monini is Kajero's Pokémon, Kajero's Pokémon are generally very individual. For example, this Monini is basically no different from an independent person. Monini nodded with a smile. "Okay, then, I'm going to challenge the Johto League. You, Kajero, and Meowth will come with me," Zahu said with a smile. Monini smiled even more happily. Although it was fun in the research institute, it also wanted to go out and play more. Zahu was happily controlling the device when he suddenly found a voice signal coming in. Zahu clicked it casually and heard the voice of Professor Oak. "Zahu, come down quickly. How did you capture this crystal rock snake? Why didn't you send it to me earlier? This special form, a Pokémon that is not afraid of water, you actually told me now." Zahu clicked on the video on the side and directly projected the video of where Professor Oak was. It must be said that Kajero and Meowth's hands-on ability is really full level. I don't know what they did. Anyway, sitting here now, Zahu can monitor the video of the entire research institute and chat with people through the surrounding loudspeakers. That's because I'm busy recently. Anyway, research doesn't cost a little time. Zahu said. "Busy?" Professor Oak looked up at the monitor with an expression that said, "Don't think I'm old and easy to fool. Teacher, you are chatting with me just for this, then I'll hang up. You continue your research." Zahu said. "No, you are going to challenge the Johto Alliance next, right? Then this crystal rock snake will stay with me for a while and I'll give it to you." Professor Oak said. "It's okay, as long as you are happy." Zahu smiled indifferently, leaving the Pokémon with Professor Oak. He was very relieved. Didn't you see that Xiaozi's 3 Crab, Muddy, and Quintero were almost never cultivated, but because they were placed next to Professor Oak, they were super powerful when they appeared. And the 3 sacred birds, you should also study them for me," Professor Oak said. "No problem, there is still a long time before the start of the Silver Conference, and I still have to write a few papers to deal with the league, so after returning to Pallet Town, I will stay for a while. This period of time is just right for you to study, but teacher, when I leave, I will take them with me," Zahu said. "I know, among the players who set out from Pallet Town, you are the strongest and have the most special Pokémon, but you are reluctant to send any back. You are not as good as Xiaozi, who sent Muddy, Quintero, Snorlax, and Crab," Professor Oak said impatiently. Okay, I will definitely try to send a stronger Pokémon back to you in the future. Raycow, Sukin, and Entei, do you want it?" Zahu said. "Thunder God, Water God, Entei? Of course, you go to the Johto Alliance and make sure to catch them back," Professor Oak said excitedly. Teacher, I'm just talking. Don't take it seriously, okay? Zahu rolled his eyes helplessly. Did he really think he was a divine beast man? Can he catch a divine beast if he wants to? Even the 3 divine birds have been caught, so why can't I catch 3 more divine beasts? Professor Oak said indifferently. Zahu shook his head and hung up the call directly, but just after hanging up, Kona's call rang again. Zahu, come here quickly, my Ninetale seems to have a problem. The Ninetale has a problem? Zahu frowned and could only give up the entertainment of flying the research institute. He changed the flight mode of the research institute to automatic flight and then walked towards Kona's room with professional equipment and props. Monini naturally followed closely and followed Zahu into Kona's room and found that Kona's Ninetale, which was still energetic in the morning, was now lying on the ground listlessly, while Zahu's Ninetale was squatting on the side with a concerned look on his face. When he saw Zahu coming, his eyes immediately lit up, and he trotted over and even excitedly bit Zahu's trouser legs and walked towards Kona's Ninetale. Zahu looked strange, but he bent down at the first time and gave Kona's Ninetale the most detailed examination. After all the examinations were completed, Zahu's expression on his face became strange. Kona was shocked when he saw this, thinking that something had happened to his Ninetale. Zahu's Ninetale was also extremely anxious and eagerly bit Zahu's trouser legs. Don't worry, Kona's Ninetale is fine. Zahu touched his Ninetale's head and said, but, congratulations, you're going to be a father. Be a father? These 3 words popped up in Zahu Ninetale's mind. He was confused for a moment, then showed an ecstatic expression, ran to Kona Ninetale and talked excitedly, as if expressing his joy of becoming a father for the first time. You mean, my Ninetale is pregnant? Kona looked surprised. That's right. According to the diagnosis, it's definitely pregnant. Zahu said affirmatively, but he suddenly became annoyed as he spoke, and the guy who made it pregnant is my Ninetale. Really, it's even faster than me. I haven't made you pregnant yet, but it made your Ninetale pregnant first, which is more efficient than me. Sister Kona, do you think we should also prepare? Pokémon and their owners grow up together, which is conducive to cultivating tacit understanding. Shut up. Kona's fair face flushed a little, and she glared at Zahu in anger. Since traveling to the Orange Islands, this guy's face has become thicker and thicker. No, I'm telling the truth. It's a matter of time. Zahu said shamelessly. Kona turned her head to take care of Ninetale, as if she disliked Zahu, and didn't bother to pay attention, but subconsciously in her mind, she really thought about what would happen a few years later. When Ninetale's child is born, her own child will also be born. At that time, Ninetale will accompany the child, and when the child is 10 years old, she will take the Pokémon out for a trip. Thinking about it, it seems beautiful. As he thought about it, Kona's face became redder and redder. Fortunately, Zahu didn't notice Kona's abnormality at this time, otherwise he would have taken advantage of the situation and maybe even created the owner of the little Ninetale. At this time, he was only thinking about how to make the Ninetale give birth safely. Pokémon pregnancy is not a trivial matter, especially when it is the fruit of his and Kona's love for the 2 Ninetales. Zahu must work harder to make this Ninetale baby be born safely. Chapter 141 Starting Over. This is the nine-tailed fox's egg. It looks so beautiful. It will definitely be more beautiful after it hatches. Meow. Nonsense. It will be Vulpix after it hatches. Don't you know what Vulpix looks like? Zahu Research Institute. Zahu, Kona, Kachiro, Meow Meow and a group of people all stared at the Pokémon egg in the center. The white color, like ice crystal, makes people feel very gorgeous at first glance. This is the Pokémon egg laid by Kona's nine-tailed fox. Pokémon pregnancy is very different from human pregnancy. The eggs are laid very quickly. It was born on the 7th day after Zahu returned to Pallet Town. That is, now, so everyone in Zahu Research Institute stared at this Pokémon egg eagerly. Meow Meow and Kajiro were also funny as usual. I don't know if it's some kind of causal fatalism. Every time they see a Pokémon egg, the IQ of these two guys will automatically drop by 50% to 60%. Kona's nine-tailed fox ignored Zahu and the others at this time. Even her owner Kona was ignored by her. At this moment, her nine tails were draped on the Pokémon egg, and her whole body was filled with the glory of motherhood. Zahu's Ninetales, on the other hand, protected Kona's Ninetales like a guardian, protecting his woman and child. The Ninetales after giving birth, and the Ninetales protecting his wife and children, are really wonderful materials. Zyujian quickly sketched out the beautiful postures of these Pokémon. Zahu looked at the two Pokémon with a smile on his face. Although he had many Pokémon, some of which were stronger than the Ninetales, the most special one in his heart was the Ninetales. This is also the common point of most Pokémon trainers, who have a special feeling for their first Pokémon. Seeing that the Ninetales had children, Zahu felt even more deeply. His eyes swept over Kona, who happened to look over at this time, and they looked at each other and smiled. The two of them knew each other, because of the Ninetales. If it weren't for the Ninetales, neither of them would know each other, let alone develop to this point. Okay, although the egg has been laid, it will take a long time for this Pokémon egg to hatch. Don't gather here. Let's go out for dinner. I'll cook to celebrate the successful birth of the Ninetales. Zahu said. With Aunt Hanako here, you cooking, boss, that's not a celebration, it's poisoning. Kajiro blurted out subconsciously. Zahu's face darkened, and a murderous look swept over. Kajiro was startled and rushed out the door. Only a voice came from afar. Aunt Hanako, I'll go out to buy vegetables for you first. Before the words were finished, Kajiro had disappeared from everyone's sight. Zahu curled his lips. It seems that this guy is a little arrogant in my absence. It's hard to recognize the identity gap between the cruel capitalists and the exploited people. After a sumptuous lunch, Dr. Oak called Zahu over and said, the Ninetale has been successfully produced. The next step is to wait for the eggs to hatch. There will be no danger during this period, but the waiting time is not short, so you should not stay for long. When do you plan to leave? Tomorrow or the day after tomorrow? Zahu did not hide, and directly stated his plan. In that case, I need you to do me a favor. I have studied the GS ball that Zyos brought back from Professor Archiki for a long time, but I still haven't figured out its specific use, so I plan to give it to Mr. Yantai in Hinoki Town for a search. I hope you can take it there, it's just on the way. Professor Oak said. GS ball? Zahu frowned slightly. This ball is considered an unsolved mystery in the Pokémon animation. Although it is said in the Pokémon comics that it is a special Pokémon ball used to capture Celebi, it has not been clearly explained in the animation. After Zyos gave it to Mr. Yanta, the GS ball never had a chance to appear again. Yes, you know Mr. Yantai, he is an expert in studying Pokémon balls. If even he can't solve it, then the GS ball is really unsolvable. Professor Oak said. Okay, since it's on the way, I'll give it to you. Zahu said. Although he knew that Mr. Yantai hadn't figured it out, sometimes you can't be too prophetic, otherwise it would be embarrassing if you can't answer the question. Not everyone is Kona. Anyway, the GS ball is of no use to Zahu. Although Celebi is also a mythical beast, it is not a combat type. It doesn't matter to Zahu. He will not sell Celebi for money, and he doesn't want to travel back to the past to change anything. In addition, Celebi is the god of the forest. If he leaves the forest, he will be affected, so Zahu has no desire to capture it. That's good. This GS ball is handed over to you. When you travel, remember to send more Pokémon back. Professor Oak said. Okay, don't urge me like this. I will leave Crystal Onyx and Golduck for you to study. That's it. Zahu said helplessly. Leave Golduck behind too. Then how many Pokémon will you take with you? Professor Oak asked curiously. I can travel with 9 Pokémon, but during the trip, I may suddenly want to capture some Pokémon, so I have to reserve some quotas. The 3 Pokéballs specially prepared by the professor will contain the 3 mythical birds, and the remaining 6 will be occupied by Haunter, Dratini, and Riolu. Then, Jigglypuff, who cannot be controlled by anyone except me, will take another quota, and the last 2 will be empty. Zahu said. Then you won't bring Sylph, Snorlax, King of Leave, and Pockets? Professor Oak asked. Let them rest for now. I'll call one of them out when we are ready to challenge the competition. Zahu said. That's fine. Pockets and Sylph prefer the greenhouse of the Institute now, and Snorlax and King of Leave are even better. Professor Oak said. Then I'll say goodbye in advance. I might leave at any time. Zahu said goodbye to Professor Oak and walked towards his room. As soon as he opened the door, he saw Kona sitting in his chair. Zahu didn't care. He sat opposite him and smiled. "What do you want to talk to me about?" "I came to inform you that your new mission as a special investigator has begun. Now I'm informing you as one of the 4 Heavenly Kings of the Alliance to accompany me to inspect various places in the Johto region," Kona said with a stern face and a business-like attitude. "Accompany you? Doesn't that mean we can continue to travel together?" Zahu's expression brightened. "That's right." Kona nodded. After getting Kona's affirmation, Zahu was immediately overjoyed. The world of 2 people can continue. Kona smiled and rolled her eyes at Zahu, thinking that the rocket team in the Kanto region was almost destroyed in name only because of you. A group of people hated you to the core, but they just never had the chance to retaliate. The Johto region you are going to now is another of their bases. It would be strange if they didn't retaliate. The last time they cleared out only the Kanto region, not the Johto region. If I wasn't with you, who knows if the people of the rocket team would be desperate? Sister Kona, if you come with me, then let's go now," Zahu suddenly said. He could guess what Kona was thinking, but he was not really afraid. With his current strength, although he couldn't do anything to the rocket team, if he wanted to escape, the rocket team would not be able to deal with him so easily. "Is it necessary to be so anxious?" Kona asked curiously. "Of course it is necessary, otherwise, it wouldn't be just the 2 of us traveling," Zahu said with a glance to the side. Kona immediately realized it, and while showing her big sister's reserve and saying that this was wrong, she and Zahu packed up their things. At night, everyone was sleeping, and everything seemed to be the same as usual. However, at dawn, 2 sneaky figures left the institute and walked towards the forest. Seeing that they were about to leave Pallet Town, and some people had not come out yet, Zahu showed a smug expression, and he had successfully shaken off those 2 people again. Zahu felt that his body was light, but when he was about to leave the woods, he suddenly heard some noises, and then he felt something was wrong. "Who is it?" Kona asked curiously. Zahu's face darkened. "Don't ask, who else could it be?" Sure enough, as soon as the voice fell, 2 dark shadows jumped out of the bushes, speaking confidently. "Were you asking who it was just now? Then let me tell you our names." "Okay, shut up, we are all family, what nonsense are you talking about?" Before Kajiro finished his opening remarks, Zahu interrupted him unhappily and threw 2 steamed buns from his pocket at the shadow. Kajiro and Mayomio easily took the 2 steamed buns, then took a bite respectively, looking at Zahu with smug pride. "Last time, we didn't expect you to be so shameless, so we were thrown away by you. Now, you want to do it again. Do you think we are idiots? We are both top notch. No one can set a trap for the other." Chapter 142 Roy Town. Zahu's plan to run away from home was exposed by Kajiro and Meow Meow, who knew him well. Zahu had no choice but to take these 2 guys with him to travel and challenge the Johto Alliance. However, their speed of action was really slow. After walking for a long time, they were still circling in the woods in front of their home. "Boss, what are you looking for? You have been wandering around here for a long time, but you haven't captured any Pokémon. Don't you have infected Zyos's direction loss?" Meow. Meow Meow looked at Zahu with a puzzled look. If he followed his plan, he should have gone out a long time ago, but he took Zahu with him. He walked around for many times and still didn't get out of this forest. "The scenery here is good, can't I walk a few more times?" Zahu said unhappily. He remembered that in the animation, when Zyos went to Wakaba Town and passed through this forest, he got lost as usual, and then a Suicune appeared. So, Zahu deliberately wandered around here, wanting to see if he could meet that Suicune and then capture it. However, after a long circle, let alone Suicune, he didn't even see any rare Pokémon. There were only roadside Pokémon like Caterpillar, Pidgeot, Spearow, and Rattata that they had no interest in catching. What's so good about the scenery? They're all the same. We've been watching them for so many years. Kajiro shrugged. Zahu's mouth twitched slightly. Has he been away for too long? These 2 younger brothers are becoming less and less aware of being lackeys. Don't they know that if they undermine their superiors, their wages will be deducted? Well, since these 2 guys insist on following, let them know what it means to be a treacherous and unscrupulous black-hearted capitalist. After thinking carefully about the next move, Zahu finally chose to walk out of the forest. If you don't bring Zyozzy out, don't fantasize about encountering the mythical beast every day. If I had known this, I would have waited for this guy to come back and then went out myself. Kajiro and Meowth were not aware of their fate of being exploited by the unscrupulous boss, and they were still immersed in the pleasure of being able to go out. Then Zahu, who was walking seriously, took action and walked very quickly. It didn't take long for them to arrive at Roy Town. After registering their information at the Pokémon Center and obtaining the qualification to participate, they went to the Roy Town Research Institute to talk to Professor Kangmu about life. After arriving at the research institute, Zahu and his friends didn't knock on the door, but pushed it indirectly. It wasn't because Zahu and his friends were impolite, but because someone would never get up to open the door. For example, now, Zahu, his two friends and the cat have all walked in. Dr. Saoki is still sitting in front of the computer desktop, not even turning his head, typing frantically on the keyboard, looking at the data analysis. He sensed someone coming in and just said, "Is that Miss Joy? You are here to check the 3 Pokémon, Lils, Crocodile, and Chikorita. Please wait a moment while I finish the data here." Zahu showed a helpless expression, walked to Dr. Saoki and said, "The pretty Miss Joy is not here, only the pretty boy me." "Zahu, is it you?" Dr. Saoki showed a surprised expression. "You are not in Pallet Town. Why are you here?" "Because I want to challenge the Johto Alliance. I just finished registering here and thought of doing research here, so I came to see you by the way," Zahu said. Dr. Saoki, the regional doctor of the Johto region, has similar responsibilities to Dr. Oak in the Kanto region and Dr. Archiki in the Orange Islands, equivalent to the representative of a regional doctor. He is also Dr. Oak's favorite student. However, unlike Professor Oak who can eat instant noodles when he is busy, Professor Sora is a data researcher. When he is busy, he will not even look back, just like before. When Zahu came for the first time, he was ignorant and knocked on the door for a long time, but got no response. He thought no one was there. It was not until later that he found out that Dr. Sora was wearing headphones to study data, so he did not hear Zahu's knocking at all. That's how it was. Zahu never knocked on the door when he came here. Sora was very appreciative of Zahu's behavior, and he even rarely closed the door. When Zahu knew this, he wondered if there would be a thief who came in and stole things in front of him one day. And now, Zahu can be sure that it will happen. Is that so? You won the championship in the Kanto region, and now you want to win the championship in the Johto region. I'll bless you first, Dr. Sora said. Verbal blessings are insincere. If you really want to bless, come to the 3 major families to express your actual blessing first. Zahu pretended to be disgusted. Don't come on. The 3 major families are given to new trainers by the league, not mine. Dr. Sora said. What's the matter with Kenji's fireball? Zahu said. Kenji is Professor Sarumi's younger brother, the one who was beaten by him at the Pokémon Academy competition a few years ago. That's just what I deserve, because I paid enough taxes. As long as I go out to travel, I can get it. Kenji's voice suddenly sounded. Zahu was slightly surprised and looked up at the lawn on the side, only to find that there was another person. He smiled and said, "You are here too? That's a coincidence." "It's not a coincidence. I'm here specifically to wait for you. I know that if you come to challenge the Johto Alliance, you will definitely come to my brother's place," Kenji said solemnly. "Waiting for me specifically? You are giving me such face, but it's a pity that you are also a rough man, not a soft girl. Why are you waiting for me?" Zahu said with a look of disgust. "Of course I'm challenging you. I still remember the Pokémon Academy competition 5 years ago. After I finished competing with you, I realized my shortcomings, dropped out of Pokémon Academy, and started traveling to challenge the league, starting from the Kanto region. As a result, I didn't even get the first gym badge of the Red Lotus gym. Then I deeply realized my shortcomings, trained Pokémon seriously, and started challenging from home. Now I just finished playing in the Unova region. I originally wanted to go to Kalos, but I saw you win the championship in the Quartz conference on TV, so I came back immediately and prepared to compete with you in the Silver conference of the Johto League," Kenji said. You really gave me face by coming to me specifically, Zahu said in surprise. Not only me, but also Shinji. He also came back and prepared to compete with you in the Johto League. Kenji said. Shinji? Who is it? Zahu asked in confusion. Ah, you forgot him. Kenji was stunned, looked at Kona strangely, then looked at Zahu and said, you forgot the one who competed with you in the finals? In the finals? Zahu heard this and suddenly said, it turned out to be him. It has been 5 years since the Pokémon competition. After so much time, he really can't remember those people at that time. Even Kenji only remembered because of Professor Soraji, otherwise he wouldn't remember. Seeing Zahu's expression of not being able to remember, Kenji couldn't help but secretly sympathize with Shinayo in his heart. After Shinayo was defeated by Zahu in the Pokémon competition, he also dropped out of school and began to travel in various regions. And he always challenged Zahu as his target. It can be said that Shinayo's current efforts are to find Zahu to duel and avenge his shame. However, Zahu, who was targeted by Shinayo, actually forgot this person completely. If Shinayo knew about this, I don't know if she would be angry to death. The most contemptuous attitude in this world is not contempt, but simply ignoring. However, Kenji didn't care about the grudge between Zahu and Shinji. He looked at Zahu seriously and said, my Infernape has evolved into Infernape, and its strength is no longer comparable to that of the past. In this competition, I will definitely use it to defeat your Ninetales. I'll wait and see. Zahu smiled slightly, but he was not very anxious in his heart. Pokémon battles really rely on talent, and Pokémon breeding also has a bottleneck for a period of time. It's not that old people are necessarily strong, and young people are definitely bad. For example, Alan, the screenwriter's own son in the Kalos region, defeated the Kalos region's Fire King Pakira's Mega Houndoom with Charizard when he was 15 years old. At that time, Xiaozi, who was only 10 years old, was at the same level as Alan, so he was also considered a king. Out of confidence in his own Pokémon and his own strength, let alone his peers, he would not be afraid, even if they were decades older than him. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 143, The Growth of Kenji. Why don't we just have match here? Dr. Soraji suggested. I have no objection. Zahu raised his eyebrows slightly. Although he was very confident, he would never underestimate his opponent. To be honest, if he could collect 8 gym badges and participate in various regional conferences, he would not be too weak. I have no problem. Just use the previous Lidoop. I'll use Infernape, and you use Ninetales. Kenji said with a fighting spirit in his eyes. Are you so anxious? Do you want to avenge your previous shame? But I used Ninetales at that time, because I only had Ninetales. Now I have more than one Ninetales, so you can forget about attribute restraint, not to mention that Ninetales is not with me now. Zahu smiled. Then let's just have a simple fight to warm up. Kenji said. Warm up? Well, this is my first Pokémon battle, since I first came to Johto. Zahu smiled and walked to the open space of the research institute next to him with Kenji. I initiated the challenge, so let me send out the Pokémon first. Noon Pig. Kenji threw the Pokéball first, and a pig Pokémon composed of red, black, and yellow appeared in the field, looking at Zahu with a strong fighting spirit. Zahu's eyes lit up slightly. Although it was only the lowest initial form, judging from this fighting spirit, the qualifications and strength of this Pokémon would not be too bad. What kind of Pokémon is this? Why haven't I seen it in Kanto yet? Meow. Meow meow. Next to him looked at Noon Pig with a strange face. Noon Pig, the initial fire Pokémon that novice trainers will get in the Unova region, and it will eventually evolve into the Flame King. Zahu explained to Meow Meow. Unova region, no wonder I didn't know. Meow Meow suddenly realized. You can actually tell its origin. Haven't you been to the Unova region yet? You actually know this. Kenji was also surprised. I'm a Pokémon doctor. I've always had a wealth of knowledge about Pokémon. Zahu said with a smile, throwing Rylu's Pokéball from his pocket. Since it's a warm-up, let's play fighting. Riolu, a fighting Pokémon. It's a pity that your Riolu hasn't evolved into Lucario yet. Kenji said. You want to wait for my Riolu to become Lucario, and then have the steel attribute, so the fire attribute can be restrained, right? Zahu shook his head and smiled. Come on, you attack first. I look forward to your revenge. Don't let me down. You will see my strength. Noonwenpig, use Jet Flame. Kenji said. Noonwenpig raised his head, and a burning flame accumulated in his mouth. Riolu, a flash of lightning. Zahu said. Riolu's eyes lit up, and his body turned into a white light. Before Noonwenpig's flames were ejected, he slapped Noonwenpig's mouth with a slap. The flames accumulated in Noonwenpig's mouth were directly beaten back and swallowed into his stomach. He was blown away and hit the grass on the side, revealing a painful expression. Riolu, wave missile. Zahu said while taking advantage of the victory. Lightning Flash has the effect of preemptive attack, and Wurmpig is notoriously slow, so as long as the timing is good, it can cause a double attack of the opponent's Pokémon moves plus its own Pokémon moves like just now. Riolu waved his hands, and a light blue energy bullet condensed, and then quickly launched it. Wurmpig, dodge quickly. Kenji said. After hearing this, Wurmpig immediately used all 4 legs to jump to the side and dodge Riolu's energy bullet. It can actually dodge it. It's well trained. Zahu said with a little surprise. Among the 3 fire pets of the past generations, Wurmpig's speed ranks second to last, only 5 points higher than Alola's blazing roaring tiger. Being able to dodge so quickly shows that it is really well trained. Of course, if I hadn't conquered it too late, I wouldn't have stopped at the semi-finals in the Unova region. Kenji first showed a hint of pride, and then said solemnly, but I'm still no match for you. You won the championship as soon as you came out, especially the move just now, which proves that your strength is no worse than any opponent I've ever met. Noonwenpig, let him see our strength. Fire pledge. Kenji shouted. Noonwenpig's body flashed with dazzling red light, and its front hoof slapped the ground hard, and strong and domineering pillars of fire burst out from the ground one after another. Riolu, sword dance. Zahu's face changed, and he quickly ordered. Noonwenpig's fire pledge was activated, and the scorching pillars of fire sprayed out. Riolu saw that there was no place to hide, and was a little panicked. Hearing Zahu's order, he quickly used his special move, dancing with both hands, and his whole body spinning rapidly, to isolate the flames outside. After the flames dissipated, although Riolu had some burn marks on his body, he still stood there firmly, his eyes bright, revealing his determination and fighting spirit. How is it possible? After taking the fire pledge head on, he can still stand there? Kenji said in surprise. It's not that he has never failed in the fire pledge move, but usually the opponent either dodged it, or relied on a special move like defending. He has never taken it all with sword dance like Riolu did. Sword dance, although it is only an auxiliary special move to increase attack power, it is neither offensive nor defensive, but when using sword dance, the body dances quickly, and an airflow shield will be formed around the body, to isolate the surrounding flames from the body. This is scientific knowledge. You should know that Pokémon Duel is not limited to moves and attributes, but also considers the venue, Pokémon body, etc. Zahu said. Indeed, there is a lot of knowledge about Pokémon Duel, so next, let's continue. The power of Noonwenpig has not yet fully erupted. Kenji looked enthusiastic. He has been looking forward to the duel with Zahu for several years. Although it is just a warm-up now, he doesn't want to lose. Same here. Riolu, hit Wurmpig in a flash, close to him. Zahu said. Riolu's speed increased immediately, turning into a white light. Before Wurmpig's power could explode, he rammed into Wurmpig's chest, knocking it away, and then launched a fierce attack like a tidal wave. Wurmpig, spray fire. Kenji said. Wurmpig resisted Riolu's fierce attack, opened his mouth, and sprayed a ball of burning flames at Riolu. Slightly tilt, continue to attack. Zahu said. Riolu tilted his head slightly, dodging Wurmpig's spray of fire like surfing the sea, and then his domineering fists, one punch after another, hit Wurmpig's head. After the sword dance bonus, its attack power is undoubtedly strong. After a few consecutive punches, it perfectly smashed Wurmpig to the ground, raising a cloud of dust. When the dust cleared, Wurmpig fell to the ground with 4 legs up in the air. His eyes were full of stars, and he completely lost his ability to fight. Come back, Wurmpig. Kenji took Wurmpig back, and looked at Zahu and said, sure enough, you are still so powerful, just like 5 years ago. Even now, I'm not sure that I can defeat you. Let's have a serious match in the Silver Conference. At that time, I will let you know my true strength. Okay, let's have a good match in the Silver Conference, Zahu said with a smile. If you have any new discoveries along the way, you can also tell me, especially about Ibrahimovic. In addition, if you have something to do, you can also find me. I still have some face here. Dr. Kangmu said. Don't worry, if there is something, I will definitely drag you into it. We will meet again in the Silver Conference Finals, Zahu said with a smile, and walked towards the next destination with Kona and others. Chapter 144 Dongman Town. After leaving Wakaba Town, Zahu and his 4 companions continued to walk towards the gym. During the journey, they passed through the Donjia Valley and a misty forest before finally arriving at a human town. Looking at the familiar and bustling human town, Kajiro and Meowth couldn't help but roar with excitement. The misty forest was full of ghost-type Pokémon. The 2 timid ones were almost scared to tears. Now they finally saw familiar people. Just thinking about it, the 2 of them felt their eyes moist. You two, are you serious? Aren't they just ghost-type Pokémon? Zahu said unhappily. When passing through the misty forest, he wanted to deliberately scare the 2 of them to show his identity as the leader of the team. However, before he started to scare them, the 2 of them were scared by the ghost-type Pokémon in the misty forest, and hugged his thighs tightly. Zahu's inner legs are still blue now. Zahu really couldn't imagine which of these 2 bastards in the animation was crazy, and wanted to be a member of Team Rocket. With such courage, they still wanted to be villains? What made Zahu speechless and even more collapsed, was that the bastard who scratched his leg was his younger brother. As the boss, he had the obligation to take care of him. Not only could he not scare him, but he also comforted him. In the end, he borrowed a cuckoo from the Jinling granny who was responsible for raising cuckoos, and walked out of the fog safely, which made the 2 cowards take back their courage. Boss, you said he was a ghost type. Ghosts are ghosts, aren't they? Kajiro said with a horrified face. Yes, even if Meow Meow is a normal type and immune to ghost attacks, Meow Meow can't escape the illusion they weave. Meow Meow also said with a scared face. With your level, you still want to travel the world with me? You are really cowardly. You are not as good as Monini. At least he is not panicking. You two should prepare for training next, Zahu said. Training? Boss, what do you want to do? Meow Meow said with his eyes wide open. Nothing. From now on, I will let Haunter enter your dreams every night to chat with you and train your courage, Zahu said. Let Haunter enter the dream. Boss, you can't treat your loyal little brother like this. Kajiro knelt down immediately, hugged Zahu's thighs tightly, and his eyes were full of tears. Yes, master, you can't treat your loyal servants like this, Meow Meow said with a face full of grief and despair. Looking at the 2 people hugging his thighs and begging, Zahu's anger in the misty forest was finally relieved a little, and then he drove the 2 guys like chasing flies and said, okay, let you go for now, get out. Kajiro and Meow Meow left quickly, as if they were pardoned, and then rushed to a roast chicken restaurant. Well, in fact, these 2 guys are also looking for reasons to get rid of Zahu and the other 2, and have a happy meal. Otherwise, if they follow Zahu and the other 2, first of all, they will be disliked as light bulbs, and secondly, the 2 of them will definitely wander around. They want to eat, not dog food. As for money, during the time when Zahu was away, Hanako didn't deduct it at all. On the contrary, it increased a lot. So these 2 guys have jumped a lot recently, mainly because they have money in their pockets, so we can turn the tables. After Zahu shook off the 2 people, he immediately turned around and smiled at Kona. Kona smiled slightly, and the 2 held hands and went shopping together, starting their dog abuse journey. Dongman Town is a town characterized by street performances. Walking on the road, various Pokémon performances can be seen everywhere. The simple ones are the development of Pokémon's own skills, such as Korakora's Bone Boomerang, Alakazam's Telekinesis floating, and the more complex ones are similar to Pokémon dance performances. If the gorgeous competition becomes popular in Johto in the future, these people are all excellent seedlings. Zahu said. That's right, these street performances and the performances of the gorgeous competition are only a formal difference. If you take off the skin, these street performances are all performances of the gorgeous competition. If the gorgeous competition is to be fully launched in the Johto area, the people here are the cornerstone. By the way, the gorgeous competition in Johto has been prepared almost. It will probably be when you participate in the Silver Conference, and their first gorgeous large-scale celebration will also begin. Are you interested in participating again? Kona said. The gorgeous competition has too many restrictions. It's boring. I'd rather concentrate on the gym competition, which is more fun. Zahu said. I'm afraid you'll be too invincible and lonely, right? But there are many opponents this time, so we really can't be distracted. Kona smiled and walked forward with Zahu. Suddenly, an unknown object shot towards her. She subconsciously caught it and almost fell down. Zahu saw this and hugged her tightly to prevent her from falling. When she looked down, she found that it was a beautiful flower. I'm sorry, are you okay? Before Zahu and Kona could figure out what was going on, a girl ran over with an apologetic look on her face. It's okay, this is your beautiful flower. Kona handed the beautiful flower to the girl. Thank you, you really helped me a lot. The girl was grateful and in return, she treated Zahu and Kona to a can of soda. Zahu and Kona also learned the whole story from her. The girl's name is Ali, a famous street performer here. She has two beautiful flowers, named Mimi and Huahu respectively. Her best performance is the dance of the two beautiful flowers. Just now they were training their ultimate move, Leaping Moon, but accidentally made a mistake, and then a mermaid crashed into Kona's arms. So that's how it is. You are preparing to participate in the performance competition in a few days. Zahu said. Yes, we are practicing the ultimate move for this. Mimi, Huahu, come, it's your turn to perform. Ali clapped her hands. The two mermaids immediately prepared for the performance, first warming up to perform the ultimate move. But even so, Zahu and Kona were still amazed by the art of performance. What a beautiful dance. Zahu couldn't help but praise. Yes, I originally wanted to use dance to improve their combat ability, but when I saw the joy of their dance, I changed my mind and wanted to use dance to replace combat to enhance communication with Pokémon, and then build the world's best dance team. Ali said. Building the world's best dance team, a good dream. Zahu said. By the way, what are your dreams? Ali asked curiously. My dream is to become the world's #1 Pokémon master, and then go to see the mythical beasts in various places, and see the scenery of the world's highest peak. Zahu said. My dream. Speaking of this topic, Kona frowned. How should I put it? She seemed to have no dreams anymore. Becoming the world's #1 master of ice and water, and pushing the art of fighting water and ice Pokémon to the highest level, this was her dream. However, she is almost there now. Although she dare not call herself the world's #1 master of water and ice Pokémon, she will never admit that she is second. Moreover, there is indeed no master of water and ice in each region who can guarantee to be better than her. Everyone is almost at the same level, and it is possible for anyone to win or lose. Then it is to become the champion, but as long as she defeats the other 3 kings, she can achieve it. Although this is also difficult, it is not an unattainable dream. It can be said to be an ideal. So when talking about dreams, she suddenly felt a little confused. However, before Kona could think of what to say, there was suddenly another beautiful flower in her arms. What happened? Kona said in surprise. It must be the psychological trauma caused by the failure just now. Zahu said. Chapter 145. Kajero wants to participate in the performance. Night fell quietly. Zahu and Kona did not leave, but went with Ali. Even Zayajiro and Miawath, who went to eat hamburgers and grilled chicken, came back. First, when traveling, if you see others in trouble, you can help them and enrich your life. Second, there will be a performance in a few days, so why not wait a few days? So Zahu and his friends stayed to see if they could help Alice's 2 beautiful flowers overcome their psychological fear. However, during this period, Zahu and his friends released all the Pokémon. Ryalu, Haunter, Monini, and Lanturald Stranger were all pulled by the 2 beautiful flowers to dance. Monini and Lanturald Stranger are extroverts. One loves to imitate, and the other loves to make fun. They are very happy when dancing. The steps are very rhythmic, especially Monini's imitation skills make it learn vividly, almost indistinguishable from the real thing. Although Haunter only has 2 hands and no feet, this kind of dance is his favorite. Only Railu is timid and a little restrained. Zahu smiled when he saw this, and bent down to tell it that dancing like this can enhance its rhythm, and then it danced happily again. It's fun to dance like this, boss. Are you planning to participate in the competition in a few days? Myomio asked. Are you going up to dance on my behalf? Others have been thinking about the competition for a long time, but we only found out today, and then we compete with others for the championship. Come on, I really don't have that talent. Zahu shrugged. Boss, is this more difficult, or is the difficulty of the gorgeous competition higher? Kajiro asked curiously. It's hard to say. The gorgeous competition is divided into 2 parts. One is the Pokémon Gorgeous Review, and the other is the Pokémon Gorgeous Battle. The competition here is similar to the first part, and because there are no restrictions, there are all kinds of wild imaginations. It's hard to compare. I can only say that the gorgeous competition seems more formal. Zahu said. Gorgeous competition, what is this? Ali said with a strange look on her face. The gorgeous contest is a battle that takes into account the beauty and strength of Pokémon, which started from Hana and spread to various places. The first round tests the beauty of Pokémon, and the second round tests the strength of Pokémon in battle, but they must also maintain their gorgeousness in the battle. Then, after collecting 5 ribbon medals, you can participate in the large-scale Gorgeous Festival. The birthplace is Hone, but later it was Sinnoh that surpassed it. Kanto Johto is relatively poor, but it seems that there is also a Gorgeous Festival this year. Ali, you can try to challenge it. Zahu said. Really? Then I will try it too. Ali's eyes lit up, and she felt that she had found a competitive game that suited her. In that case, boss, why don't I try it here first? Kajiro said. Okay, you do have a talent for performance, but have you chosen which Pokémon to use? Zahu said. Use Monini and Venusaur. Kajiro said. Monini, no problem, but Venus Flitrup? Zahu raised his eyebrows, and before he could finish his words, Venus Flitrup, which was eating, heard Kajiro and Zahu calling its name continuously, thinking that something else was going on, so it jumped up excitedly, and bit Kajiro's head. Hey, don't do that, what are you doing? Kajiro struggled hard, and accidentally fell to the ground with the Venus Flitrup. Zahu shook his head. Kajiro was timid most of the time, but sometimes he would have some courage that he didn't even know where it came from. Ali didn't have any rejection of the sudden addition of opponents, but took the initiative to introduce some rules and details that Kajiro needed to pay attention to when participating in the competition. Then, for a few days in a row, Kajiro and Ali often disappeared, and the 2 of them were secretly together, and even Meow Meow didn't know what they were doing. Zahu, on the other hand, let Railu learn to dance with the 2 beautiful flowers. He also recently discovered that these 2 beautiful flowers not only dance beautifully, but also cooperate well with each other, and have excellent fighting ability. If Zahu does not command, Railu may not win in a one-on-one situation, and will definitely lose in a two-on-one situation. This is when the 2 beautiful flowers basically do not use grass type special moves, and basically use simple body special moves such as jumping and kicking. Zahu also truly realized that what Ali said before about wanting to dance to improve the strength of the 2 beautiful flowers meant that dancing can achieve the smallest force and the best avoidance. So during this period, Railu dances with the 2 beautiful flowers every morning, and then practices boxing with Zahu in the evening. Today was the same. After dancing for a while, Zahu touched Railu's little head and said, okay, let's stop dancing here. We will practice all the special moves later. Railu jumped lightly and sat on Zahu's shoulder to express his joy. Zahu showed a helpless expression. He didn't know if his shoulder had the same charm as Zyls's to attract Pokémon. Before Ninetales evolved, his favorite place to stay was his shoulder. Now Railu is the same. Zahu really hopes that Railu will evolve soon. In this way, his shoulders will be relieved. Brother, you are here too. At this time, Zyls's voice suddenly sounded. Zahu looked up and found that it was the familiar Zixia trio. Xianagang didn't know what kind of injury he suffered from Professor Rachiki. Anyway, one day when Anaka went out to buy vegetables, she picked him up like a corpse and completely turned into a married woman gang. This time, Zahu thought that he went out again to see some beautiful girls in Chengdu. You are finally here. Zahu didn't feel much joy when he saw Xiaozi and his trio again, because these three people were famous for walking slowly, getting lost every day, and encountering adventures every day, while he and his friends didn't encounter any adventures at all, and were caught up by these three guys. How slow he walked. Yes, I heard there will be a performance tomorrow, so we stayed for another day. By the way, brother, how about we have a battle between rivals to see who is stronger after such a long separation? Xiaozi said. As soon as the voice fell, the Railu on Xiaozi's left shoulder showed a hint of fighting spirit in his eyes. Without saying a word, the Railu on Zahu's shoulder jumped down and stared at the little Chilean Railu. Zahu looked curious, not because of the problem between the two Railas, but because the Railu jumped immediately after Xiaozi said it just now. But wasn't Xiaozi's Railu deaf? How did he manage to make Railu understand what he said? In addition, because Railu can't hear the sound, Xiaozi took special care of it and gave it the same honor as Pikachu, without having to enter the Pokeball, and then each of them occupied a shoulder. Not to mention the gravity that Xiaozi's shoulders can bear. Let's say, where will Chikorita sit in the future? The Pokémon that Xiaozi captured in the Johto region are not very strong. Although he has gathered all the starter Pokémon from the Johto region, during the Silver Tournament, only Chikorita evolved into Bayleaf. His main pet is still Crocodile. His strongest Pokémon in the Johto region should be Heracross, known as the Bug King. But if we talk about popularity and impressiveness, Chikorita, which he captured in the Johto region, is indispensable. People in the world gave him the nickname, the Vinegar King, because they really like Xiaozi more than Pokémon like people. They even want to shake Pikachu's position as the main wife. So, if you give away both shoulders now, what will you do in the future? Brother, what's the matter? Why don't you compete? Xiaozi urged. Okay, if you want to compete, then compete. Chapter 146 Railu Showdown. Railu, let me see our strength. Xiaozi said excitedly, not caring whether his Railu could hear him or not. However, after Xiaozi finished speaking, Railu's fighting spirit was obviously strengthened. Xiaozi and his Pokémon usually did not communicate with words, but communicated with their hearts. Railu, don't lose. Whoever loses is the younger brother. Zahu also smiled. Zahu's Railu clenched his fists, and his fighting spirit soared. He could lose to anyone, but not to Xiaozi's Railu. Xiaozi stared at the field, and without giving a single command, his Railu jumped out as fast as an arrow from a bow, clearly using a flash of lightning. Without using his mouth to give orders, Zahu was caught off guard, but fortunately his Railu was also experienced. When the little Chilialo rushed over, he instinctively moved a small step to the side and dodged, then waved his hand and hit the little Chilialo with force. Although the attack failed, and he was hurt, Xiaozi was not impatient. He had always placed Zahu in a high position and thought that this was normal. Xiaozi, who was already closely connected with Railu, shared his perception with Railu, and used lightning flash again without any extra words. Dodge, Zahu said. Zahu Railu easily jumped and dodged the attack, showing the results of surfing and dancing during this period. Continue, split the tile, Zahu said. Zahu Railu immediately turned around, his right hand flashing, and was about to hit Xiaozi Railu hard. Get out of the way, Xiaozi shouted in his heart. Xiaozi Railu quickly stopped his body from moving forward quickly, and his whole body fell down, just avoiding Zahu Railu's split tile. Wave missile, Zahu said. Zahu Railu immediately condensed a light blue energy bomb between his hands. We will use wave missiles too, Xiaozi said in his heart. Xiaozi Railu immediately followed the same action, and the two energy bombs quickly condensed and exploded towards each other. The two energy bombarded fiercely, and then the energy bomb of little Chilialo was stronger than that of Zahu's Railu, and soon knocked down Zahu's Railu's energy bomb and hit Zahu's Railu. Good opportunity, Railu, use lightning flash quickly, Xiaozi said excitedly. Little Chilialu's body immediately turned into white light, and at the moment, when Zahu's Riolu was injured, it hit Zahu's Riolu's chest hard, and knocked it away. What's going on? They use the same trick, but the boss's Riolu actually lost to Zyos's Riolu. Could it be that the Riolu cultivated by the boss is not as good as Zyos's? Kajiro asked curiously. Yes, meow. Is the boss's first defeat going to be harvested by Zyos? Meow said. That's because Zyos's Riolu itself has a wave guide that is far superior to ordinary Riolu. As the saying goes, when a door is closed, a window will be opened. Zahu's previous command was wrong, and he shouldn't have used the wave missile head on. Kona said. The Wava guide is far beyond the ordinary. I remember that the special thing about Riolu and ordinary Pokémon is the Wava guide. Kajiro said. Yes, Riolu's Wava guide is very special. If its Wava guide does not resonate with the trainer, it is nothing, just an ordinary Pokémon. But if it can be connected with the trainer's Wava guide, then the value of Riolu will be greatly improved, no less than the quasi-gods such as Dragonite. Kona said. Then boss, it's not really dangerous. Kajiro said. Yes, but the starting point is just the starting point. It still depends on the usual command and training. Kona smiled and was not worried. Zyos's Pokémon is not particularly advantageous compared to Zahu's, and in terms of trainer level, Zahu is far better than Zyos now. Zahu still has a greater chance of winning this game. In fact, Kona thinks that losing a game to Zahu is not a bad thing. Is there any trainer who has never lost a game? Appropriate setbacks are good for physical and mental health. For a so-called perfect trainer who has never lost a game, then losing once is probably a disaster. Riolu, wave missile. Zyos also found that Zahu's Riolu's wave missile was not as good as his own Riolu, so he quickly ordered in his mind, intending to use wave missiles continuously. After receiving the order, Riolu immediately used his own energy bombs, condensed a wave missile, and attacked the injured Zahu Riolu. Get out of the way, Zahu said. Zahu Riolu quickly jumped hard and luckily avoided the wave missile of little Chilialu. But just after dodging, the wave missile of little Chilialu came again, and Zahu Riolu could only dodge hastily, overwhelmed. Riolu, use the results of our training these days, and try to dodge. Zahu didn't have a good method for the time being, so he just let Riolu dodge first, and stared at the wave missile of little Chilialu, looking for a way to crack it. Zahu Riolu recalled the training he had done with Zahu, and immediately calmed down. He looked at the wave missile in front of him calmly, as if he was facing only the waves. He also remembered the recent dance training, and dodged slightly, and actually survived the violent energy bomb. Why didn't you hit it? Come on, Riolu. Zyos urged him in his heart. Since he was a child, Zahu has always been his idol and a goal he pursued, but he has always had a dream of defeating Zahu in his heart. Now he feels that his chance has come. Sensing Zyos' urgency, Zyos Riolu also worked harder to launch the wave missile, to respond to the trainer's expectations and support. Zahu's eyes suddenly lit up, and suddenly said, Riolu, there is no need to dodge. Turn your body 45 degrees to the side and use the lower body kick to kick the wave missile back. Zahu Riolu heard the words and immediately stopped the tendency to escape. He twisted his body, turned over and kicked the wave missile, kicking the wave missile back with one foot. Riolu, get out of the way. Zyos he ordered hurriedly, and the little Chilialu immediately raised his legs to dodge, but the previous continuous use of wave missiles caused it to lose a lot of physical strength, and it was impossible to dodge, and was hit by its own wave missile head on. Okay, the last blow, use your strength, Zahu said. Zahu's Riolu's eyes glowed, and then he quickly slapped the little Chilialu on the head, completely ending it. Zyos' Riolu has lost the ability to fight, and the winner is Zahu's Riolu. Zyao Gang, who was the guest referee, made a fair judgment. Riolu, you have worked hard. Zyos picked up his Riolu, and sent a message in his heart. Leo Riolu called out. Although he failed, he still showed a happy expression when he felt Zyos' love. Very good fighting style, and the bond tacit understanding is worth looking forward to. But Zyos, you still have a long way to go. The reason why my Riolu can easily defeat you in the end is because you hurriedly let Riolu launch an attack in the end, resulting in too much physical loss, so you will be defeated, Zahu said. A big difference between real battles and game battles is the attack method of Pokémon. Especially the energy ball attack form of energy bombs such as wave missiles, evil waves, and electric balls. As long as the strength and timing are well grasped, you can use physical attacks to hit back the energy ball attack. In the later stage of the duel, Railu's physical strength decreased, and even the power of the attack special moves decreased. In addition to the previous observation of strength, Zahu can easily make his Railu counter-attack successfully. Brother, I will pay attention next time. By then, it will be my Railu who defeats your Railu. Zyrozy said. Okay, we'll see who's better then. Zahu smiled and touched his Railu, who licked Zahu's hand affectionately. Suddenly, a strange light flashed, and when the light faded, Railu had disappeared, and standing in the same place was a two-legged Lucario like a fighter. Evolved. Zahu said with a look of surprise. Lucario shouted excitedly, and then began to lick Zahu's face with his tongue. Okay, there's no need to be like this, you've grown up too. Zahu touched Lucario, who was as tall as himself. Lucario waved his fist, indicating that he wanted to practice boxing. Okay, we'll go practice with you now. Zahu smiled at Lucario. We obviously got Railu together, but my brother evolved first. Zyrozy looked at Zahu and Lucario, grateful for Zahu's successful evolution of Railu, but also a little disappointed. Well, the evolution of Railu mainly depends on the intimacy between it and the trainer. The intimacy between you and your Pokémon has always been at the maximum level, so it will evolve quickly. However, I don't know if your Railu will join the No Evolution League. Zahu said. No Evolution League? What is this? Zyrozy said in confusion. This wasn't initiated by your Pikachu and then faithfully implemented by the two big guys Squirtle and Bulbasaur? Zahu said. Ah, is there? Zyrozy asked puzzled. Ask yourself about this. Zahu smiled and ravaged Zyrozy's hat. Lucario finally evolved, and he was very happy. Chapter 147 Kagero's debut. What are you doing? Looking at the dressed up Kagero, Zahu couldn't help but blurt out his catchphrase from his previous life. Didn't you say that during the gorgeous competition, you have to wear a special dress? So I adapted to it in advance. And this kind of gorgeous performance, of course, I have to take the opportunity to show the ballet that I have practiced for many years. Kagero said proudly. Then can you put on men's clothes for me? Zahu said madly. That's right, someone put on the female clothes of a ballerina. 2 slender long legs, ups and downs of the figure, and proud bust. The 3 points that ordinary women dream of actually appeared on a man. Zahu covered his heart. He couldn't stand it. What should he do if he suddenly wanted to die? Meow Meow tilted his head and thought about it, then suddenly jumped up, poked Kagero's chest with his finger and said, so soft. Meow, Kagero, what are you using? Yes, it's so big. Zyraksha looked at Kagero's fake breasts, then looked down at herself, and suddenly felt a little envious. Is there? It's okay, not too big. Kona looked at it and said, this is still. Zyraksha wanted to say that it was not big, but she looked up at Kona's, then looked down at herself, and suddenly she was autistic, and didn't want to talk. 8 years later, maybe there will be a chance. Zahu comforted him against his conscience. There is a gap between a 10-year-old girl and a mature big sister. And in terms of bust, looking at the generations of Pokémon, Kona has never been inferior to anyone. And Zyraksha, 8 years later, it would be good to be as good as her 3 sisters. Kagero, is he really a boy, not a man dressed as a woman? Ali suddenly asked curiously. Your question is very meaningful. Before today, I can tell you with certainty that he is a man, but don't ask me today. If you ask me, I don't know. Zahu said. Okay, it's a street performance, a cosplay meeting. Let's go quickly. Kagero urged without caring at all. Zahu took a deep breath. He really couldn't imagine how Kagero's parents felt when they saw this scene. Anyway, if it was him, he would have to spit out some blood if his son became like this. Let's go. Ali smiled awkwardly. Although it was a bit embarrassing to be with a cross-dressing guy, there was nothing he could do, since he knew him, right? Finally, everyone walked to the competition venue together, and then Ali and Kagero went backstage to prepare for the competition. Ali came on stage first, with 2 beautiful flowers and a special move, the Flying Moon, full of the art of dance, and 1 cheers from many people as soon as she came on stage. Then, it was Kajiro and his Monini and Venusaur to come on stage. When he came on stage in women's clothing, he actually caused a group of people to scream. Some people with more direct personalities directly shouted beautiful women. Everyone seemed to be conquered by Kajiro's appearance in an instant. Zehu and the few people who knew the truth all twitched their mouths. What should they do? They wanted to rush up and pull that guy down. Zehu, you don't have the habit of wearing women's clothes, right? Kona said. No. Zehu's mouth twitched even more. What are you thinking about? That's good. It's not easy. Kona looked at Zehu earnestly. Zehu turned his head away and didn't want to talk. On the one hand, Kona's words hurt him badly. On the other hand, Kona's words reminded him of memory that he couldn't bear to look back on. It was one day when traveling in Kanto. At that time, Zehu, who was still dazed, looked at Kajiro and suddenly felt that Kajiro was handsome. After being single for a long time, looking at Kajiro and Meow Meow, I think they are handsome. Kajiro on the stage was completely unaware of Zehu's thoughts. He was immersed in his first stage performance. He snapped his fingers and then began to dance ballet beautifully. Born as a rich second generation, he is really versatile. The 2 pets, Monini imitated vividly and cooperated with Kajiro and the pet perfectly. Although the Venus flytrap had no feet, its body swayed very rhythmically, especially in terms of rotation. It could keep up with the rhythm. The 3 of them spun in circles together. Although there was no skill bonus, the dance of 1 person and 2 pets was full of art in itself, and the audience around cheered loudly. Even Zehu couldn't help but nod his head in praise. Again, apart from catching Pikachu and giving birth, there is nothing that Kajiro can't do. The beautiful trio of rotations gradually came to an end, and the applause from all around was thunderous and lasted for a long time. Ali looked solemn when she saw it and felt that she had met an opponent. Kajiro made a beautiful rotation and was about to stop and then bowed to the audience in front of him. As a result, just as his waist was bent, the dizzy Venusaur next to him suddenly jumped up for some reason and bit Kajiro's head. The applause from all around stopped immediately, and Zehu's expression was also frozen. Was it a mistake in his first show? Kajiro's movements were also frozen, but he was very quick-witted and immediately twisted his body again to rotate. The Monini next to him was brightened and suddenly jumped up and jumped onto the bottom of the Venusaur, which was now the highest point. 1 person and 2 pets kept rotating vertically, and then Monini's body flashed with light. It was unknown whether it launched a special move or prepared props on its body. But there is no doubt that such a performance is more shocking. The applause that had just stopped for a short time broke out again. In the end, it was also because of this performance that Kajiro won the championship this time. Holding the championship trophy, Kajiro had a look of ecstasy and said intoxicatedly, "Boss, I think what you said before makes sense. I have decided that my goal in the future is to become a top coordination trainer." While saying this, "Change your clothes for me first," Zehu said. Oh, I see. Kajiro realized that it was time to change clothes and hurriedly ran to the side to change clothes. Humans and Pokémon dancing together? It seems to be more creative than mine, Ali said. Although she lost the game, she was not disappointed or jealous. He just had better luck, Zehu said. Luck is also a kind of strength. After watching his performance, I realized that I still need to do more practice. See you later. Maybe we will meet again in the gorgeous competition, Ali said. I believe your strength will only continue to improve. When we meet next time, maybe you will form the world's best dance team, Zehu said. I also hope that when we meet next time, you will have achieved your dream. Ali said goodbye to Zehu and others with a smile. Okay, it's time to say goodbye again. You three should train yourselves well. When we meet next time, you three must make me shine, Zehu said. Don't worry, brother, I will become stronger when we meet next time. And Ryalu, it will also evolve into Lucario. Zyozzy said. Yes, brother Zehu, I will also fight you when we meet next time. Chow Chow has also evolved into Milotic. Zyuksha said. then stay in the competition of the Whirlpool Islands. That is a competition specifically for water Pokémon. Zahu said. Specially for water Pokémon? Okay, then I will definitely go there when the time comes. Zyuksha said. Zahu smiled and walked towards the next gym with Kajero and others who had changed their clothes. Chapter 148. Rebellion Against Rule. Not happening. Brother, look, this is a Chico I captured. I have already captured 2 Pokémon in the Johto region. Zahu and his group, who had just arrived in Kikayo City and were preparing to take a break before challenging the gym tomorrow, received a video call from Zyuksha as soon as they arrived at the Pokémon Center. Seeing the strong show off in the video, Zahu couldn't help but roll his eyes. Sure enough, the inertia of history is still very strong, and the grown mother's cute son Deerleaf still appeared. But, Zyuksha, who gave you the courage to show off? The Queen Pikachu, the cute Riolu, and now a Chico Leaf. Are your shoulders enough? By the way, if I remember correctly, you only have 6 Pokémon quotas for the trip, and then you released Dragonite and sent Snorlax back to the teacher's house. But there are already 6 Pokémon, including Pikachu, Charizard, Bulbasaur, Squirtle, Riolu, and Heracross. Where did the extra space come from? Oh, don't you have a Pidgeot? Where is it? Pidgeot, it has evolved into Pidgeot and is now in the forest at the doorstep. Zyuksha said. The forest at the doorstep? What's going on? Zahu raised his eyebrows. Is the inertia of this plot so strong? Really? Release it early, release it late, release it early, release it late. Why do you care so much? That was when we went out on this trip. I found that the Spearow that I hit with a stone last time had evolved into a toucan and started to attack the Pidgeot in the forest. In order to protect its companions, Pidgeot evolved into a Pidgeot. I wanted to capture toucan, but failed. For the safety of Pidgeot and the others, I had to leave the Pidgeot there. Zyuksha said. Okay, I knew it would be like this. I'll go back and see more later. Zahu said. Yes, I'll see it when I go home, right? And if there's anything, I can ask Professor Oak to send Pidgeot over. It's not far anyway. Zyuksha said. Huh. Zahu was stunned. It seemed to be like this. It didn't take an hour to get from the research institute to the forest. Even if you walk, Professor Oak drives faster. It's really easy to find it, and then you can teleport. It's even easier than teleporting Charizard. Why didn't that Pidgeot appear in the animation? Zahu tried hard to recall, and he was sure of one thing in his heart. Sure enough, without popularity, he was destined to become a supporting role. But speaking of it, the bond between that Pidgeot and Zyuksha is indeed a bit ordinary. Although it is known as a hard-working bird, there doesn't seem to be anything profound between it and Zyuksha, unlike Bulbasaur who has a mysterious garden and Squirtle who has a fire brigade. As for Pikachu and Charizard, let alone. So it seems reasonable that they don't come back. Also, Bulbasaur and Squirtle are also in the Oak Research Institute now. Zyuksha said. Ah. Also in the Oak Research Institute? You kid has forgotten the old ones, because you have a new one. Big Pigzoof. Zahu said. Brother, what are you talking about? What Big Pigzoof? Zyuksha said with a puzzled look. It's because of the ownership of the river in the Research Institute. The water type Pokémon and the grass type Pokémon are fighting. Because Bulbasaur has experience in mediation and Squirtle has experience in being a captain, the 2 Pokémon were sent back first. They will come back later. Later? Zahu even smiled. Don't worry, they will definitely not come back. But it's not bad. Compared with the initial Pokémon in the animation, which were scattered everywhere, it's also good that Bulbasaur and Squirtle can be together now. At least, everyone can talk and chat together. Yes, I'll borrow them temporarily, but I still have to return them. They will always be my best friends. Zyuksha said seriously. Zahu nodded slightly when he heard this. This is not bad. The friendship between Zyuksha and his initial Pokémon is amazingly high. Okay, that's it. I'm going to challenge the Kikayo gym tomorrow. You should hurry up too. Don't be directionally challenged again. Zahu said. Okay, brother, I know. I will be faster. But brother, have you captured any powerful Pokémon along the way? Zyuksha asked curiously. Why are you asking so many questions? Sleep well and walk well. I'll wait for you to catch up. Zahu hung up the phone directly after he finished speaking. I'll tell you that I haven't captured a single Pokémon so far. You want me to embarrass myself in front of you? Impossible. Zyozzy has already captured 2 Pokémon, but you, boss, don't have any. You are so weak. It was not embarrassing in front of Zyozzy, but the 2 bad friends next to him would not miss the opportunity, especially Kajiro. Zahu's face turned black, and he took out a bank card from his pocket and said, meow meow. 3,000 yuan. I want to disfigure Kajiro. 3,000 yuan. Meow Meow's eyes suddenly emitted 2 strong lights, and then he grabbed Kajiro frantically without thinking. Meow Meow, what are you doing? Didn't you say that we would resist the rule together? Kajiro was caught off guard and shouted. Huh? Resist the rule? Zahu narrowed his eyes, revealing a dangerous aura. No, master, it's all Kajiro's nonsense. I'll beat him to death right now. Meow. Meow Meow grabbed frantically and disfigured Kajiro directly. Resisting the rule was what everyone had agreed on. It was not to overthrow Zahu's leadership position, but to improve the treatment. But this cannot be said directly. Since you said it, don't blame me for surrendering to the boss. Anyway, if I beat you up after following the boss, I will be the boss in the future. The status of me, you, and Meow Meow will remain high. Okay, count me in. Zahu's eyes suddenly revealed a fierce light. He was too lazy to do it and let you 2 fight each other. Now he suddenly realized that, since you 2 want to rebel, it's not my fault. It's been too long since I beat you up. You're itching, right? Boss, I was wrong. I was really wrong. Please forgive me. Boss, I support your rule for 10,000 years without wavering. It's all Meow Meow, the cheap cat, who told me to rebel and get a higher salary. Boss, I was really wrong. I swear, I have always been your lackey and will never change in this life. Zyojiro screamed repeatedly, which scared Joe at the Pokémon Center. He thought someone was being abused and almost wanted to call Miss Junsha nearby. Of course, in fact, in Zyujiro's mind, it was abuse. In his heart, he prayed endlessly that Miss Joai would call him, but no one understood this voiceover. Finally, Zahu, who had beaten up Kajiro, fell asleep very comfortably. Mio got the salary increase promised by Zahu, and fell asleep happily. Only Kajiro, who was beaten and crying in the corner, was left, cursing Mio in his heart. As for Zahu, he didn't dare to do that. After all, he was the big boss who paid the salary. He and Mio had planned painstakingly, in fact, just to provide some benefits and wages. As for resisting Zahu's rule, impossible. If he left Zahu, where could he find a place where he could eat and drink for free? Find another boss who usually bullied him, but when something happened, he would be the first to take the blame and protect his fiancée. So Kajiro was thinking about how to fight Mio. As for Zahu, the boss was still the boss. As for Kona, the last person in the group, he fell asleep when Zahu and the others started fighting. 3 funny guys fighting. There was really nothing to see. It was not until the next day that the 4 of them came to the Kikyo Gym to challenge. Chapter 149, Kikyo Gym Battle. Kikyo Gym, the first gym in Johto. The gym trainer, Asuk, specializes in bird Pokémon. He is an avid trainer of bad Pokémon, similar to Misty who specializes in water type. His strongest Pokémon is Pidgeot. Looking at the gym trainer Asuk in front of him, Zahu had many thoughts in his mind. Challenger, are you ready for your Pokémon? Asuk looked at Zahu seriously and said, of course. Zahu nodded. Okay, in that case, my first Pokémon is Gugu. Asuk threw a Pokéball. Then, an owl-like Pokémon stood on one leg in the field, with 2 eyes as big as copper bells, both of which were red. Gugu, a Pokémon that usually adds flying, has 2 legs, but likes to stand on one leg. People who don't know it will directly think it has only 1 leg. A pair of eyes, with the special ability to see through illusions, naturally restrains ghost-type Pokémon. Zahu went over all the information in his mind again, and then without thinking, he omitted Haunter. The remaining 3 mythical birds were too strong and unnecessary, not to mention Jigglypuff. Lucario was okay, although the fighting attribute was restrained by the flying attribute, but attribute restraint was never absolute. However, it would be meaningless to let him come in the first game, and there would only be 1. Come out, Dratini. Meowed Dratini appeared in the venue, looking at the Gugu in front of him, showing a fighting spirit. It has been with Zahu for a while. Although it can't be compared with the first generation veterans such as Ninetales, it is also a senior compared with the Golduck, Jigglypuff, and Riolu behind it. But now Ghastly has evolved into Haunter, and it is not far from Jenga. Then Riolu has also evolved into Lucario. It feels that it has to fight hard, otherwise it will fall out of favor. Dratini? As the challenger, you attack first. Asu said. As a gym trainer, the challenger's Pokémon usually attacks first. In that case, Dratini, let's have a 100,000 volt charge first, just for show. Zahu said. Dratini cried out, and a strong electric current burst out from its light blue body, attacking Gugu. Under Zahu's training, although it has not yet evolved into a Dragonite, its body length is far longer than that of an ordinary Dratini. After all, its origin is extraordinary, and the power of this charge is even more extraordinary. Gugu, fly. Asu shouted passionately, and Gugu immediately flapped its wings, and flew up calmly, avoiding the attack of Dratini. Zahu, let me show you how powerful bird Pokémon are. Gugu, attack from the sky. Asu shouted. Although he is a gym trainer, he is as fanatical as a young man when it comes to bad Pokémon. Gugu's wings received the command, and he immediately swooped down from the sky, fast and fierce. Dratini, see. Zahu said a command that Asu couldn't understand, which made the people around him look confused. Then, Dratini's not so short body suddenly twisted and formed a C position. Gugu's pecking attack could only hit the air, and had no effect. A group of people finally understood what Zahu meant. Gugu, come again, speed up, let everyone know the flying style of bad Pokémon. Asu shouted. Gugu immediately flew up again, soaring in the blue sky, and then quickly rushed down several times, attacking Dratini one after another. Dratini was not affected at all under this intensive attack, twisting its body around, and posing in various unimaginable postures to avoid the attack. Gugu's attack failed for a long time, and he was inevitably a little tired. Seeing this, Zahu made a quick decision and said, 100,000 volts. Dratini's eyes flashed, and blue electricity burst out, directly electrocuting Gugu. Gugu was wrapped in the blue electricity and immediately showed a painful expression. Then, there was a burst of burnt smell. Zahu took a deep breath and thought, after this game, let's go eat roast chicken. Losing to an electric skill is unavoidable. Come back and have a good rest. Asu took back Gugu to comfort him, and then threw out another Pokémon. Doodle, go all out. The three-headed Doodle appeared on the field, and responded to Asu's feeling, and roared at Dratini, as if to show protest. Dratini naturally roared back without giving in. Doodle, a rare flying bird Pokémon that can't fly. Zahu looked at Doodle, it was obviously a flying type, a bird Pokémon, and it could even learn the skill of flying in the game, but it was helpless that this thing just couldn't fly. It was just the Pokémon version of an ostrich. No, my Doodle can fly. Asu retorted. Doodle is the origin of bad Pokémon for me, and the desire to fly into the sky is exactly the same as mine. I see, then. Dratini, 100,000 volts. Zahu ordered. Dratini immediately released a strong electric current. Doodle, move at high speed. Dodge. Asu said. Doodle immediately ran quickly, as fast as lightning. Although he had no ability to fly, Doodle's running ability on land was ridiculously strong. Okay, that's it. Attack like crazy. Asu shouted. Doodle quickly approached Dratini, and its three heads kept attacking, occupying all the space at once, making it impossible for Dratini to dodge. Dratini, use 100,000 volts again. Zahu said. Doodle, fly. Asu took the opportunity to shout. Doodle, who was attacking like crazy, immediately jumped up suddenly, and jumped to a high place, higher than the height of Gugu's previous flight, and successfully avoided Dratini's 100,000 volts. This is flying. It's obviously high jump. Kajiro couldn't help but complain while watching the game. Yes, it's completely fraudulent. Meowth also echoed. It's normal for trainers and Pokémon to have some special names. There's nothing to be surprised about. Kona smiled. Boss lady, you can still laugh. The boss is in danger. Meow Meow said. It is a crisis that can better train a trainer. Besides, although this Dodily is powerful, it has not yet forced Zahu to the point of being helpless. Kona said calmly. Dodily, use the drill trick to decide the winner in one breath. Asu said. Dodily ran quickly, speeding up the attack. The three beaks rotated quickly, causing damage to the mini dragon again. The mini dragon fell heavily to the ground, in a mess. Okay, it's the end. Dodily will use the triangle attack to decide the winner. Asu said. The energy of the three beaks of Dodily brewed together and formed an equilateral triangle. Mini dragon, use the dragon tail towards the ground quickly, Zahu said. Hearing Zahu's order, the mini dragon struggled to get up, its tail shining, hitting the ground hard, and its whole body flew up, directly avoiding Dodily's triangle attack. 100,000 volts, Zahu said. Dratini screamed, and the powerful electric current was vented on Doodlebug. Doodlebug screamed in pain, and then soon followed the footsteps of Goo Goo Goo, completely losing the ability to fight. Show your courage. Just when Zahu thought the battle was over, the disciples of Kakayo Gym suddenly roared in unison, which scared Zahu. Then, with everyone's continuous encouragement, Doodlebug actually stood up again. Zahu's face changed, and he was about to defend himself, but he saw Doodlebug fall down again, before he took a step. He was greatly relieved, and thought to himself, that's right, these people are not Zaozi, how could they have a god-level skill like Rejuvenation Roar? Doodlebug, thank you for your efforts, I have seen your courage. Asu took back Doodlebug and comforted him, but looking at Zahu's Dratini, he was still full of dissatisfaction. This was only the initial form. It was good enough to beat one Goo Goo Goo, but he actually beat two of his Pokémon in a row. Zahu smiled proudly. His Dratini was not an ordinary Dratini. It was praised by the ancient Dragonite. It was an absolute king. I dare not say that it could fight against the heaven and earth like Pikachu, but it was definitely at the level of Squirtle and Bulbasaur. Next, my Pokémon is my most trusted partner, Pidgeot. Asu threw out his trump card Pokémon and thought to himself that it would be too embarrassing for him as a gym trainer if all three Pokémon failed to take down one of the opponent's Pokémon, especially with only a Dratini. Asu thought to himself. He suddenly saw a flash of light on Dratini's body, and his confident expression froze immediately. Could it be that it evolved at this time? Chapter 150, The Power of Haxa. It's evolving. Dratini's sudden change surprised not only Asu, but also Zahu and the others. As we all know, dragon-type Pokémon are powerful, but their growth cycle is long and their evolution is slow. Like Ghastly, who was trained at the same time, it evolved into Haunter early, and later Riolu also evolved into Lucario after several battles, but Dratini is still Dratini. No one would have thought that there would be a trend of evolution at this time. The light changed, and when everything faded away, what appeared in the original place was no longer Dratini, but a slender and mature Dragonite. However, compared with the ordinary Dragonite, Zahu's Dragonite is nearly half the length, and there is a black stripe on the tail, which is even more strange. Dragonite itself did not seem to expect that it would evolve at this time, but after the evolution, it was obviously very happy. After all, Dratini and Dragonite have almost the same body structure, except that Dragonite is larger and longer. And it also has the ability to fly, so it can move freely, unlike Dratini, which can only move slowly on land. Controlling the body that had just evolved, flying freely in the sky also became clear and bright. Haxorus has the special ability to control the weather, which is not a skill, but an instinct. Looking at Haxorus flying freely in the sky, Zahu was in a good mood. He had originally planned to change Pokémon. Dratini could not deal with Asu's trump card Pidgeot, because the advantage of being able to fly was too great. But now that it has evolved into Haxorus, it will be a 1-on-3 battle. Since they can all fly, he is not afraid. Although Zahu still does not know the principle of Haxorus's flight, if it is said that the two wings on its head can make it fly, Zahu will not believe it. In that case, the head should be on top and the body should be hanging below, not flying almost parallel. But it doesn't matter. Anyway, Zahu doesn't know why many Pokémon can fly, but they can fly. Okay, the evolution is complete. Asu, let's complete the final battle. Let me see your Pidgeot's strength. Zahu said. I will let you see it. Pidgeot is the most powerful bird Pokémon. Asu said confidently. Is Pidgeot the strongest bird Pokémon? Kajiro looked confused. His Pidgeot had recently evolved into Pidgeot, but he really didn't feel that it was the strongest bird Pokémon. Yes, Pidgeot is loyal and reliable to its master. It is the best among bird Pokémon, Asu said proudly. Zahu nodded slightly. He didn't agree with Asu's words the best, but he had his own preferences and didn't object. After all, Pidgeot did have considerable development potential among bird Pokémon. After 3 stages of evolution, Pidgeot is docile and easy to get. After evolving into Pidgeot, it has a flying speed second only to Dragonite, not to mention that it can also super evolve. If it weren't for Togekiss first and the 3 gods later, Zahu really planned to raise one. It's so powerful, then I will train it well. Kajiro thought for a while and said, then you should watch my battle and recognize the charm of bad Pokémon. Asu said to Kajiro first, then looked at Zahu and said, Zahu, let's have an aerial battle. I wish for it. Haxorus, you should adapt to the current power. Let's start with a 100,000 volt. Zahu said. Haxorus chirped, and the current surged on its body, attacking Pidgeot. Pidgeot, turn around and dodge. Asu said. Pidgeot easily adjusted its posture in the air and quickly dodged Haxorus's strong current. Pidgeot, flash of lightning. Asu said. Pidgeot moved so fast that it almost turned into a white light and collided with Haxorus head on. Haxorus, hold on, use Dragon Tail. Zahu said. Haxorus was hit by Pidgeot and showed a little pain, then immediately the tail was shining and hit Pidgeot. Pidgeot, use high speed movement. Asu said. Pidgeot leaped up, increasing his speed suddenly, avoiding the attack of Haxorus's tail, and then suddenly appeared 7 or 8 meters away from Haxorus. Pidgeot, use high speed movement again. Asu shouted. Pidgeot's speed increased again, and he shuttled freely in the field, so fast that he almost reached the point of teleportation. Zahu controlled Haxorus's desire to chase. Pidgeot's peak speed can reach Mach 2, and now after several high speed movement bonuses, Haxorus is completely unable to catch up. If it evolves into Dragonite, it will be possible. Not only can it catch up with Pidgeot, but it can even beat it. But that is if. Chasing now will be almost useless except for being beaten in vain. The speed difference between the two sides is too large. If you want to win, there are only 2 ways. The first is to make a fuss about speed, such as increasing your own speed, or reducing the opponent's speed. The second is to make the speed ineffective, that is, to use the must-hit skill. Must-hit skill? Zahu's eyes suddenly lit up and he said, Hakron, let it rain around first. Hakron nodded, and a bead on his head shone with light. It immediately began to rain heavily in the sky. This was a unique ability of its Hakron period. It could freely control the weather, almost as a thought, without even consuming skills. Rain, do you want to use rain to wet Pidgeot's feathers, to reduce its flying speed? Good idea, but it's not enough. Pidgeot's ability is more than just this little bit. Pidgeot uses Fierce Blast Wind. Asu said. Pidgeot's wings vibrated, and a tornado of wind rushed in, mixed with rain and counterattacked Hakron. Hakron, don't be underestimated, use thunder. Zahu said. Hakron's body trembled, and a stronger electric current burst out from its body than before, and then it attacked Pidgeot, as if it had a fixed position. Pidgeot, move at high speed again. Asu said. Pidgeot moved so fast that it seemed to have disappeared. It also appeared behind Haxorus, as if it had teleported like before. However, when it appeared, Haxorus thunder followed closely. The overbearing and powerful electric current spread all over Pidgeot's body. Pidgeot screamed in the thunder and lightning. On rainy days, thunder will hit. No matter how fast you are, you will still be hit. Unless you fly out of the battlefield. Finally, send him to destroy the death ray. Zahu said. The sharp horns on Haxorus's head condensed powerful energy, and then burst out in an instant, hitting Pidgeot, who was already seriously injured. Pidgeot was hit twice in succession, and fell to the ground, losing his ability to fight. After winning 3 consecutive victories, Haxorus flew excitedly in the sky. As its mood improved, the rain in the sky automatically dissipated, revealing bright sunshine. Zahu was secretly amazed when he saw this scene, thinking that being able to freely control the weather is really a good ability, but unfortunately, once it evolves into Dragonite, it will lose this ability. No wonder Haxorus is worshipped as the god of agriculture, while Dragonite is called the guardian god of Kanto by trainers, just because of its powerful strength. If Dragonite is not more powerful, Zahu really wants to prevent Haxorus from evolving. Of course, whether it evolves or not is not decided by one person. It mainly refers to Haxorus's thoughts. If it really does not evolve, according to its performance at the moment, Zahu probably won't care. It's nothing to be the strongest Haxorus in history. Besides, this is reality. It's not uncommon for a well-trained Haxorus to beat Dragonite. Show your courage. At this time, the people in the wing gym suddenly roared again, and then Pidgeot also struggled in cooperation. But this time, Zahu was not scared again, but rolled his eyes. He was hit by a thunder and a destruction ray. If he can still stand it, I don't want this badge. Sure enough, even if the people in the wing gym shouted very seriously, it didn't work at all. Haxorus's full strength attack was undoubtedly terrifying, and Pidgeot completely lost his ability to fight. I lost, and I lost with all my heart. Your Haxorus is really strong. This is the wing badge. Asu handed the badge to Zahu and said, learn from each other. Your flying Pokémon also opened my eyes. Zahu took the badge and complimented with a smile. They had no grudges in the past and today, and they were about to part ways, so they just said some nice words. Besides, if it weren't for Asu, Dratini wouldn't have evolved. Okay, let's go, Zahu said to the Kona people. The Kona people nodded, and then Haxorus on the side suddenly flew over and bent his head in front of Zahu and the others. You want to take us flying directly? Zahu looked at Haxorus and said. Haxorus nodded repeatedly, his eyes curved, indicating his agreement. That's good. With Haxorus here, it's easy for us to walk. Meow Meow also said excitedly, and was ready to ride on it. However, Zahu suddenly showed a strange smile at this time, and looked at Haxorus. Haxorus understood immediately, and his tail shone brightly, and he hit Meow Meow with his tail. Then, Zahu and Kona rode on the Hakron together, holding Kona's hand, and disappeared into the sky under the dreamy and charming sunset. As for Meow Meow and Kajiro, the two traitors who wanted to overthrow his rule, who knew them? Anyway, Zahu didn't know them. Boss, you have no humanity when you have the opposite sex, and you actually abandoned your loyal little brother. Kajiro cursed angrily. Yes, this scum, you have a different heart and no humanity. Kajiro, let's ally again, and overthrow the boss's dark rule. Meow Meow said. Yes, you make sense. Kajiro looked at Meow Meow with a firm face, and the man and the cat looked at each other, and the alliance against Zahu was re-established at this moment. Meow Meow put his hands on his waist, thinking about how to resist Zahu's evil rule in his heart, but he hadn't thought about it yet, and suddenly heard the sound of the wings of a flying bird vibrating, and saw Kajiro holding the two claws of the Pidgeot in the sky in the distance, looking at Meow Meow with a smug look on his face. Yesterday, you, the bastard, cheated me, and today, I was stupid, so I would ally with you again. Isn't it just being ruled by the boss? What's the matter? It's not the first time I've been ruled. At least it's better than being betrayed by a cheap cat like you. The alliance against Zahu's dark rule was established in the last second, and disbanded in the next second. The people in the Kakayo gym who witnessed all this were confused. Where did these freaks come from? End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.